Get out! You're useless to my company. The CEO fired me after 7 years of grinding, sneered, be grateful I didn't cut you sooner, then nodded at security. Drag him out if you have to. So I took nuclear revenge. Sup Reddit, 7 years. That's how long I, 33 male, spent building the backbone of a $200 million trading firm that treated me like disposable tech support. When they fired me to make room for their new CEO's Stanford grads, they forgot one critical detail. They never actually owned what I built. This is what happened when I reminded them. The town hall meeting happened on a Tuesday. Evelyn had rented out the main conference space and hired a production company. Giant screens, professional lighting, catered lunch. I stood in the back with my coffee, watching the show. Evelyn took the stage first. New CEO, installed 8 months ago. Ex-Morgan Stanley shark, who says pivot and disrupt every third sentence. Compliance waived vendor review during the 2018 fire drill. They never signed the license paperwork. Her suit cost $4,000. Mine cost $250 at Men's Warehouse 3 years ago. She tapped her color-coded notes once. Today marks a transformational moment for Meridian Capital. We're unveiling the next generation of our trading infrastructure. Jason and Brett took the stage with wireless mics, looking like they were about to announce the iPhone 47. Jason, my former apprentice, the kid I'd trained when he couldn't tell a regression model from his elbow. I'd spent 2 years teaching him everything he knew, stayed late fixing his code when he broke things, covered for him when he nearly cost us a major client by miscalculating leverage ratios on a $40 million position. Now he stood up there like I didn't exist. Today, Jason said, his voice smooth and practiced, we're unveiling the future of Meridian Capital, a system that's faster, leaner, and built for the next generation of trading. Faster, leaner. The same buzzwords every tech bro uses when they don't understand the engineering. They pulled up a demo. Sleek interface with animations that took weeks to design. But underneath all the polish, I recognized the architecture immediately. It was Atlas. Just Atlas with a new skin. The routing logic? Still mine. The risk calculations? Still mine. The backup protocols? Still mine. They'd literally just redesigned the interface and called it innovation. Brett stepped forward, clicked to the next slide. One of the key improvements is what we call dynamic risk allocation across multi-threaded execution layers. I raised my hand, because dynamic risk allocation across multi-threaded execution layers wasn't a real thing. He was describing parallel processing, which is a basic concept, but using completely fabricated terminology. Jason saw me. His eyes locked on my raised hand. He forced a smile. Alex, since you're transitioning to a consulting role, let's keep the floor focused on current architecture. A few heads turned, maybe 8 or 9 people out of the 100 in that room. That's not a real term, I said. Voice calm, clear. You're describing parallel processing with made-up jargon. And the routing signature on that demo is identical to Atlas's core framework, which I built in 2018. So either credit the actual work or stop presenting it as new. The room went quiet. That toxic corporate quiet where everyone pretends they didn't just hear something awkward. Evelyn stood up from her front row seat, measured, controlled. Alex, this presentation is about our strategic vision. If you have technical concerns, we can schedule a separate review. I don't have concerns, I said. I have facts. That system isn't new. It's mine. Her smile flattened. Let's take this offline. I set my coffee down on the nearest table, walked out, didn't slam the door, stood in the hallway by the coffee machine. That terrible Keurig that made mediocre coffee, but was better than going back in there. I pulled out my phone, checked Slack. My title in the company directory had been changed. No longer lead quantitative developer, now just consultant systems. Changed mid-meeting, while I was still in the room. I checked my calendar. Access revoked for security review. The next architecture meeting invite didn't include me anymore. My phone buzzed. Email from HR. Subject line, meeting request, tomorrow 9:45 a.m. I knew what was coming. Wednesday morning, 9:47 a.m. I walked into the executive boardroom carrying nothing but my phone and 7 years' worth of exhaustion from building someone else's empire. The trap was already sprung. 2 security guards stood inside the room, one by the door, arms crossed, the other behind my usual chair, the one I wouldn't be sitting in. Meridian Capital, high-frequency trading firm. One wrong algorithm and you're down 8 figures before lunch. I'd been their lead quant developer since 2018, back when they were hemorrhaging clients and couldn't keep systems online for more than 3 hours. I built Atlas, their entire risk assessment and trade execution platform, from scratch. Every line of code, every failsafe, every backup protocol. It was the spine holding up their entire operation. The boardroom had that sterile corporate smell. Evelyn sat at the head of the polished table like she owned the oxygen. The whole C-suite was there. VP of Operations scrolling through his phone. CFO pretending to review spreadsheets. Head of Trading staring at the wall. And Jason sitting in his pressed Oxford shirt, avoiding eye contact like his life depended on it. "Alex," Evelyn said, fingers steepled in that way that makes you want to break furniture. "You're done here. Don't make this difficult. No preamble, no small talk, just execution." I stood there. Didn't sit. Didn't speak. "As of this moment, your position at Meridian Capital is terminated. Effective immediately." She tapped her color-coded notes once. "Jason will handle the transition. He already has access." Jason's throat moved. A swallow. But he kept his eyes on the table. Nobody else moved. Nobody spoke. The VP kept clicking his pen. That nervous tick people have when they're watching someone else get executed. The CFO didn't even look up from his spreadsheet. The head of trading closed his laptop slowly, like the click might draw attention. Not one person in that room had the spine to acknowledge what was happening. Evelyn slid an envelope across the table like it was a napkin. "Be grateful we didn't cut you sooner." The HR rep sitting to her left had a form on a clipboard already filled out, like they'd practiced. She let that word hang in the air for 3 seconds. "You've been resistant and disruptive for months, Alex. This isn't personal. It's what's best for the firm." She said it like she was reading it into a deposition, making it official, making it my fault. She glanced at the guard by the door. "Get out. You're useless to my company." The room sat in that suffocating silence, waiting for me to grovel or ask why or make it easier for them to feel okay about what they were doing. I looked at Jason. His jaw tightened, but he still wouldn't meet my eyes. Then I looked back at Evelyn. That smug little smile on her face, like she'd just won poker night with someone else's money. "Lupin Legal," I said, voice flat, cold. 8 minutes. The smile flickered. Confusion crossed her face. Was I serious? Her brain was working overtime trying to categorize it. Meaningless threat? Sour grapes? But something in my tone made her stop. Evelyn's expression hardened. "Escort him out. Now." The security guard behind me shifted, moved closer. I stood still. Evelyn's voice went colder. "If he refuses, remove him." The guard's hand closed on my elbow. I stepped away. Smooth. Controlled. Not aggressive. Just clear. Everyone in that room suddenly found something fascinating in their paperwork. The VP studied his phone. The CFO adjusted his spreadsheet. Jason stared at his hands. I turned and walked out. Didn't slam the door. Didn't give them the satisfaction. The door clicked shut behind me. My chair still empty. The envelope still sitting there, untouched. The hallway was empty. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Corporate carpet that looked depressing. When the doors opened to the lobby, I pulled out my phone and checked Atlas's admin console. Status: license revocation initiated. Limited mode, 0 hours, 8 minutes. The clock had already started, but not because of me. By the time I reached my car in the underground parking garage, the countdown was at 5 minutes. I sat in the driver's seat, didn't start the engine, just watched the numbers tick down on my phone. Somewhere up on the 12th floor, the first error alerts were hitting their screens. Small things. An order that wouldn't execute. A risk calculation that hung. A portfolio that loaded incomplete data. I imagined Evelyn in that boardroom, already moving on to the next agenda item, congratulating herself on cutting costs by 15%, making the tough decisions that CEOs get bonuses for. Revocation. Timer complete. Restricted mode initiated. Here's what Evelyn didn't know. I'd seen this coming 4 months ago. The subtle freeze-out. The excluded emails. The budget meetings I suddenly wasn't invited to. The way they started rooting critical decisions around me like I was radioactive. I'd been tracking every dollar for months because of Mom's medical bills. But I'd prepared. Atlas didn't live on Meridian's servers. Never had. Back in 2018, when I was brought in to salvage their imploding infrastructure, they were a mess. Constant executive turnover. Systems that crashed every other week. Zero institutional memory. Building something mission-critical on that foundation would have been idiotic. So I built Atlas as hosted infrastructure through my consulting LLC. Managed service billed monthly under systems hosting/market data. Atlas wasn't hidden. It was filed under the corporate junk drawer. A P paid my LLC invoice every month. Nobody reads line items under $50,000. IT had it on the network diagram as external OMS/risk vendor. Vendor review got waived during the 2018 fire drill and turnover buried it. Once something is labeled vendor, nobody touches it unless it breaks badly. Meridian was the kind of place that treated process like optional DLC. They'd been running every trade, every risk calculation, every client portfolio through my system for 7 years. They just never understood they didn't own it. And Atlas had fail-closed protocols I'd coded 3 months ago when I first smelled blood. If license contacts changed or payment went disputed without notice, Atlas would enter limited mode, not instant, contractual fail-closed, degraded service pending authorization review, no execution without valid license, no exceptions. By the time they realized something was catastrophically wrong, I'd be gone. I started the engine and drove out without looking back. By 2:30 p.m., I was home, middle of a workday. Claire was on the couch with her laptop, corporate attorney at some mid-tier firm downtown. We'd been together 2 years. Smart, ambitious, the kind of person who color-coded her calendar and planned everything 6 months ahead. She looked up when I walked in, checked her watch. "Why are you home?" "They fired me." She blinked, set her laptop aside. "What?" "This morning. Walked into a boardroom. Security already inside. CEO terminated me effective immediately. Said I was useless to the company. Security walked me out. Jason's taking over everything I built." Claire sat forward. "Alex, that's 7 years. Gone." She stared at me. I watched her face cycle through reactions. Shock, concern, then calculation. "Did they give you severance?" she asked. "That's your first question?" "Did they?" "They offered a package." I didn't look at it. Her jaw tightened. "You didn't look at it." I had 8 minutes before their entire trading system went into restricted mode. "What are you talking about?" "Atlas, the platform I built. They don't own it. I just revoked their license." Claire stood up. "Alex, that sounds like you're making this worse. If they fired you, you take the severance and move on. I took back what's mine." "That's not how this works." She picked up her bag. "I'm up for partner review in 6 months. If you're about to be in some legal battle, are you serious right now?" "I'm being realistic. This is messy. I just got fired, humiliated, and you're worried about how it looks for you." She started putting her laptop away. "I need some space." "Space? I can't be associated with this. Get out." She stopped. "What?" "Get out. Now. Don't talk to me like you're worried about your career review while I just told you I got publicly humiliated. Get out." Her face went cold. "I can't be tied to this. It reflects on me." She grabbed her coat. "Good luck explaining this disaster to your mother." The door slammed. I stood there for a long moment, then sat down and opened Atlas's admin console on my laptop. Activity log showed a spike. 8:47 p.m. HR system access. Legal folder ping. Operations flag. Then I saw it. External alert. Priority flag from Claire at lawfirm.com. Subject line. Urgent. Security risk assessment RE. Alex. CC. Meridian HR. Meridian Legal. Operations. I clicked through to the forwarded notification. Atlas had intercepted the routing metadata when their systems pinged external counsel databases. The message preview was enough. Terminated today, but made threats regarding system access. Said he can shut you down. Recommend you terminate access immediately and treat him as a threat to operational security. She'd put it in writing. CC'd legal. Corporate email. Professional letterhead. Claire had tipped them off before she even left my building. My phone buzzed. Atlas notification. Security escalation, 8:52 p.m. trigger. External counsel advisory flagged account as active threat access. Status, already terminated, 9:47 a.m. HR had already killed my credentials that morning as part of the firing. But Claire's email upgraded me from terminated employee to security threat in their system. Different label, same dead access. Atlas's fail closed had already activated hours ago. Authorized contacts changed without proper notice per the service agreement. Automatic. Exactly as designed. Claire didn't pull the trigger. She just signed her name to the bullet. I sat there staring at the screen. Then I pulled out my laptop and opened Atlas's admin console. My lawyer, the one who'd set up my LLC, had told me 2 things. Don't touch production and document everything. Typed 1 command. Enable. Audit logging target. All admin access. Mode litigation. Hold Atlas blinked back. Full audit logging enabled all access attempts recorded retention. Indefinite. If they touched Atlas again, I'd have receipts. And if Claire's email surfaced in Discovery, she'd have receipts too. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Mom's number. I almost didn't answer, because answering meant explaining. and explaining meant she'd panic. Panic meant her blood pressure, and blood pressure meant the ER. Mom had been sick for 3 years. Autoimmune disorder that required expensive maintenance drugs and quarterly specialist visits. I'd been covering it quietly. She thought her insurance handled everything. She didn't need to know I was juggling $3,200 a month in medical bills on top of everything else. I let it go to voicemail. Then my phone buzzed. Text from Mom. Someone from your company just called. Said you were let go and there were concerns about your behavior. Are you okay? Why didn't you tell me? I stared at the message. Meridian had called my mother. Not Claire. Meridian's HR. Following up on Claire's security risk flag by reaching out to my emergency contact on file. They'd weaponized my one vulnerability. My phone rang again. Mom's number. I answered. Alex, honey, someone from HR said, Mom, I'm fine. She said they had to let you go. That there were security concerns. That you made threats. Mom, that's not what happened. They fired me because I wouldn't hand over work I built. Now they're covering themselves. Covering themselves? Alex, what about... She paused. I could hear the strain in her voice. What about money? Your apartment? My appointments? Mom, I have savings. I have a severance package. I'm fine. Are you sure? Because if you're in trouble... Mom, do not cancel any appointments. The specialist visit is tied to your drug refill. I'm handling this. I have everything under control. But I didn't. Not really. Because Meridian had just weaponized the one thing I'd been trying to protect. And now Mom was scared, which meant her health would spiral, which meant more appointments, medications, money I didn't have. I hung up and sat there in the empty apartment. Then I added one more command to Atlas's audit log. Flag, external contact attempts. Family members. Note, attempted intimidation via emergency contacts. Retention, permanent. The following Tuesday, Jason tried to restructure Atlas's core routing protocols. Evelyn's idea, get rid of the legacy dependencies and rebuild it under their direct control. He spent 4 hours trying to reverse engineer the authentication sequence. Failed every time. Atlas's defenses were too layered. Every attempt triggered automatic countermeasures that created additional redundancy. By the end of the day, he'd actually made the system more resistant to tampering. I watched it all happen in real time from my apartment. Atlas's logs. My attorney told me to document everything and not touch a thing. Jason finally gave up around 6 p.m. Sent an email to Evelyn with the subject line. Need to discuss system architecture complexity. Evelyn's reply came back 10 minutes later. Bring in external contractors. Budget approved. And that's when I knew they were desperate. The contractors showed up on Thursday. 3 guys from an incident response firm in Chicago. The kind that charges $800 an hour and shows up in black polo shirts with their company logo embroidered on the chest. Lead guy was named Craig. Late 30s, confident, competent. An engineer who'd actually earned his reputation. Craig spent the first hour just mapping Atlas's architecture. I watched through the logs as he traced pathways, identified nodes, documented dependencies. He was methodical, careful. He mapped it like he'd done this before. Around 2 p.m., he found the first anomaly, a routing signature that didn't match Meridian's standard infrastructure. He flagged it for deeper analysis. Then he found the second anomaly, and the third. By 4 p.m., he'd realized Atlas wasn't just unusual. It was separate, an external system integrated so deeply into Meridian's infrastructure that it might as well have been the foundation. He called a meeting with Evelyn and Jason. I couldn't see the meeting, but I could see the aftermath in the logs. Craig pulled metadata and build stamps. Then he requested vendor documentation. AP forwarded the invoices. Legal forwarded the old waiver. Domain registration did the rest. My LLC name was on every invoice. The system they'd been calling theirs for 7 years had my author tags on every critical component. I imagined the look on Evelyn's face. The realization that the legacy system she'd been trying to replace wasn't Meridian's legacy at all. It was mine. That night, Claire called. I didn't answer. Let it go to voicemail. Listen to the message later. Alex, I heard what's happening with Meridian. The legal threats. I need you to know I didn't think they'd actually use my email. I was trying to protect myself, not... Look, please tell your lawyer not to drag me into this. I can't be part of Discovery. Call me. I deleted the voicemail. She wasn't sorry. She was scared her email would surface. Forget her. The next morning, Evelyn's assistant sent me a calendar invite. Urgent discussion regarding system protocols. I declined the meeting. Sent back a single-line email. All communication should go through my attorney. Because that's what you do when someone tries to steal your work and then acts surprised when they realize it was never theirs. Evelyn responded within an hour. No more fake courtesy, no more corporate polish. Alex, let's be clear about what's happening here. You will comply with the transition of all systems to Meridian's full control, or will seek emergency relief. TRO. You have 48 hours to respond. Emergency relief. TRO. For software they never owned. I forwarded the email to my lawyer, the one who'd helped me set up the original LLC and licensing agreements. She called me back within 20 minutes. They're desperate. They know they don't own Atlas, so they're trying to scare you into giving it up. And Atlas stays where it is, your intellectual property. They have no legal claim. She drafted our response that afternoon. Short, clinical, devastating. Attached to it, the original blueprints. Time-stamped documentation, hosting invoices, W-9, the MSA draft from 2018 they never signed, registration records, everything proving I'd built it, owned it, and they'd never formalized terms. The response went out the next morning. My lawyer called me that afternoon. Alex, Meridian just sent their TRO motion with supporting exhibits. And Exhibit B is an email from someone named Claire at a law firm, dated the day you were fired. Says you made threats about shutting down their systems and recommends immediate credential termination. Silence. Alex, did your ex-girlfriend tip them off? Yeah. Well, congratulations. She just made herself a witness and possibly opened herself up to tortious interference claims if we want to go that route. I could hear the grim satisfaction in her voice. What does that mean? It means Claire put herself in the middle of this. In writing, on corporate letterhead. If they try to use her email as evidence of your threats, we'll tear it apart in discovery. She had a personal relationship with you, broke up with you the same day, then immediately contacted your employer with inflammatory claims. That's not a neutral security assessment. That's retaliation. She paused. And Alex, if they actually file this, we can counter with defamation and interference. She made false statements that damaged you professionally. That's actionable. By early the following week, I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Meridian had brought in outside counsel for the litigation threat. Big firm. Expensive. Same firm where Claire's mentor had just made partner. Same firm where Claire had been networking for a lateral move. I mentioned it to my lawyer. She laughed. Actually laughed. Oh, this keeps getting better. Let me make a call. She called back an hour later. Conflict check hit. Hard. Claire's relationship with you, her email being used as evidence, and her connection to the external firm? They've pulled her off any Meridian-adjacent matters and flagged her for the ethics committee. She's been walled off. What does that mean for her? Partner review? Paused, probably dead. Any chance of moving to the big firm? Gone. She's toxic now. Firms don't want associates who create conflicts and liability. A week later, another mutual contact mentioned they'd seen Claire in a coffee shop, looking rough. Heard she got pulled from a major deal last minute. Something about conflicts. And she's not on the partner track email list anymore. I didn't ask for details, didn't need to. Claire had tried to protect her image by throwing me under the bus. Instead, she'd created a paper trail that made her a liability. Her firm was doing what firms do, quietly pushing her toward the exit while covering their own behind. No dramatic firing, just the slow death of explore other opportunities and we'll be in touch. The kind of professional exile that doesn't wash off. The following Friday at 3 a.m., Atlas went into full shutdown mode. Jason tried again at 2:47 a.m. Same move, same arrogance. Atlas detected the unauthorized credential injection and immediately escalated containment protocols. The system had been in restricted mode since the first Wednesday. Degraded, but functional. Jason's stunt pushed it over the edge. Full lockdown, no license, no execution. By 9 a.m., Meridian's trading desk couldn't execute orders properly. Positions queued and never cleared. Portfolio analytics loaded as blank screens. The desk went manual at 9:47 a.m. Risk calculations went stale. Seven-figure exposure sitting unprotected while the market moved against them. By 10:30, clients were calling, and the trading floor was in full panic mode. I watched it unfold through Atlas's audit dashboard. Everything recorded for counsel. Evelyn called an emergency meeting. Required attendance for all technical staff. I didn't go. Didn't respond to emails. Didn't answer my phone. Sat in my apartment with cold coffee and Atlas's logs. Around 11:15, they brought Craig back in. Emergency rate, $1,200 an hour. Maybe higher. Full access. Craig was good. Better than Jason. Better than most engineers I'd worked with. He spent an hour tracing the failure cascade. Mapped dependencies. Got within 3 steps of Atlas's control layer. Then, Atlas moved. Access violation detected external authority, rejected revoking temporary credentials. Craig's screen went black. Full system logout. Account disabled, session terminated, token invalid. Complete security lockout. I actually laughed. First time in weeks. Meridian stopped paying him 15 minutes later. By 2 p.m., the cumulative damage was hitting 7 figures. Failed trades. Blown risk limits. Client complaints piling up. Evelyn must have been losing her mind. My phone buzzed around 3:30. Text message from a number I didn't recognize. We need to talk, in person, name your terms. E. Evelyn. Got my number from HR records. I didn't respond. Another text came through 20 minutes later. We're losing clients, bleeding money. Please just call me back. I turned my phone off. Let her sweat. Monday morning, my lawyer called. Alex, we're issuing subpoenas for discovery. Meridian's internal communications, HR records, and any third-party correspondence related to your termination. Okay. That includes Claire. She's compelled to testify since she inserted herself into this. Her email is Exhibit B in their filing, which means she's a material witness now. She's going to love that. She made her choice when she put it in writing. Now she gets to explain it under oath. That night, Claire showed up at my apartment. Didn't text first. Just knocked on the door. I opened it. Stood in the doorway. Didn't invite her in. Alex, we need to talk, she said. We really don't. I got a subpoena from your lawyer. And? Alex, I can't testify. It'll destroy my career. The partners are already watching me. If I'm deposed about the email, you should have thought of that before you wrote it. I was protecting myself. You were covering your behind. There's a difference. Her face hardened. What do you want? I'll retract the email. I'll say I was wrong. Too late. It's evidence now. You made yourself part of this. Alex, please. You called my mother. Or you told Meridian enough that they did. You put my career, my reputation, my mother's health at risk because you were worried about optics. I didn't think... No, you didn't. I stepped back and closed the door. Stood there listening to her footsteps fade down the hallway. Then I went back to my laptop and checked Atlas's logs. Still running. Still secure. Still mine. The following Monday, Meridian's legal team sent me a formal demand letter. Pages of threats wrapped in lawyer speak. Claims of breach of contract. Allegations of service disruption. Demands for cessation of all license termination and service unavailability. They wanted me to hand over Atlas's code. Full admin access. Documentation. Everything. And if I didn't comply, they'd pursue maximum legal remedies, including injunction, TRO, and emergency motion. I forwarded it to my attorney. She called back within an hour. They're desperate. This letter is practically begging. They know they don't own Atlas, so they're trying to scare you into giving it up. What do? Nothing. Let them make threats. When they realize they have no leverage, they'll come back with a negotiation offer. And that's when we negotiate damages and fees. I hung up and poured myself a coffee. First one I'd had in weeks. Stood by the window watching the city lights. Traffic moving below. People living their normal lives. By Wednesday, the damage at Meridian had crossed 7 figures according to a compliance contact who still talked to me. Trading halts, blown positions, client withdrawals, the kind of losses that make board members update their resumes. Evelyn tried calling me directly. 4 times. Left voicemails that started professional and ended desperate. I didn't call back. Earlier that week, Thursday, the board meeting had happened. Emergency session with less than 4 hours notice. I wasn't there, but I didn't need to be. Atlas was. See, Jason had uploaded a shared audit file to the board's secure portal. Their portal pinged Atlas for logs. That was enough. Evelyn stood at the head of the table, visible in the recording, trying to explain why their systems were failing, why contractors couldn't fix it, why the company was hemorrhaging money. Her color-coded notes spread in front of her, like a battle plan that was losing. Then came the question that changed everything. A voice from one of the video screens. Flat, calm. Who owns Atlas? Evelyn blinked. What? The trading system. Atlas. Is it proprietary to Meridian or was it contracted? Because the architecture suggests external development. Evelyn shifted. It was built internally, years ago. Legacy system maintained by our development team. Someone off-screen. Can you show us the IP assignment? Silence. Then the voice came back. That's not what I was told. The speaker. Richard. Senior partner at a venture capital firm. Early investor who kept Meridian alive in 2019. I met Alex 3 years ago at an industry conference in Chicago, Richard continued. We discussed vendor risk management and compliance protocols. He sent me his standard service agreement, registration packet, and invoice template afterward. Same architecture Atlas appears to use. Very thorough documentation. He paused. And I remember because the email said something specific. Platform operates independently. Client access via license only. Revocation clause standard. Another pause. I still have the email chain. And the LLC registration. And the original service proposal he sent to your predecessor in 2018. Evelyn's face lost all color. Jason went completely still. Someone asked, "So we don't own it?" Richard leaned forward on the video screen. "I don't think we ever did." The meeting ended 30 minutes early. No decisions made. No reassurances given. Just questions. Expensive, career-ending questions. I watched the recordings later. Watched Evelyn's face as her world collapsed. Watched Jason realize he'd been standing on someone else's foundation. No satisfaction, just cold awareness that the truth surfaced. Friday morning, their board's attorney sent a settlement proposal. $2.4 million for continued Atlas access through year-end, plus formal licensing terms at $180,000 monthly going forward. My lawyer called it a pay-to-stop-bleeding deal, no admission of liability. I countersigned it that afternoon without hesitation. The wire transfer hit my account by close of business. I invoiced the ashes. That night, I got an email from someone I hadn't heard from in 4 years. From Sarah Subject, "Are you available? Alex, heard about the situation at Meridian. Also heard they never actually owned your work. We're building a new platform at Quantum. Real engineering, real respect, no corporate nonsense. We want you to build the architecture. Your terms, your equity, your team. Interested? Sarah." I stared at the email for a long time. Quantum Trading. Boutique firm. Small but profitable. Run by people who understood the work. I replied within 10 minutes. "Yes, let's talk." By Friday, I had an offer letter. Senior architect. 2% equity. $280,000 base. Full autonomy. I signed it that night. Renamed the new system Atlas X. Built for engineers. Owned by engineers. Meanwhile, Meridian kept spiraling. The SEC thing I heard first from a compliance guy I used to work with, then saw it mentioned in a filing a few weeks later. Their broker had flagged weird order patterns, compliance logs went messy, and it stopped being an internal problem. Client withdrawals were brutal. At first, it was a couple big clients pulled, then the industry gossip turned into actual numbers, north of $40 million in 2 weeks. Evelyn got quietly removed from all external communications. Jason got reassigned to special projects, corporate speak for "we're letting you resign instead of firing you." Their AUM dropped somewhere around a third, maybe more. Around the same time, I heard Claire left her law firm. Not fired, just pursuing other opportunities. Translation: they'd made it clear she had no future there. Partner track? Dead? Major clients? Reassigned? Big firm lateral move? Never materialized after the conflict check. She'd tried to insulate herself by burning me. Instead, she'd created a paper trail that made her radioactive. The legal world is small. Word travels. Associate who created conflicts and got subpoenaed in vendor litigation isn't a resume highlight. I heard she ended up at a smaller firm, doing insurance defense, making half what she used to. The kind of quiet professional death that doesn't make headlines. Just a slow fade into irrelevance. I didn't feel satisfaction, didn't feel vindication, just the cold awareness that actions have consequences, even when you think you're being smart. 3 weeks after I signed with Quantum, I visited our new office downtown. Modern, clean, windows that opened. From the conference room, I could see Meridian's building in the distance. Glass tower, expensive, sterile. The lights on the executive floor were dark. Parking lot half empty at 10 a.m. The empire I'd built, collapsing. And I felt nothing. Just the quiet satisfaction of watching people face consequences. 3 months passed. Quantum grew. We landed 4 major clients. Atlas X performed flawlessly. My team expanded to 6 engineers, good ones, hungry ones, the kind who cared about the work instead of just collecting checks. Claire tried reaching out one more time. A text message. Late at night. "I know you won't respond, but I need you to know I'm sorry. Not for what it cost me. For what I did to you. I was wrong." I read it twice. Then I deleted it. Some apologies come too late. Some bridges burn completely. That's not cruelty. That's just reality. Meridian, meanwhile, kept dying in slow motion. They'd hired a new CTO from a failed fintech startup. Tried rebuilding their systems. 3 contractors. 6 months. $2 million in fees. None of it worked. You can't rebuild what you never understood. Their client base shrunk to a third of what it was. Revenue down 60%. Layoffs every other month. Jason left for a position at some boutique firm in Boston. Took a 30% pay cut. Told everyone it was a strategic move. Brett disappeared entirely. LinkedIn said he was exploring new opportunities. Translation: unemployed. Evelyn held on the longest. Stubborn. Desperate. Convinced she could turn it around with the right pivot, the right strategy, the right story. But the board ran out of patience. I heard through the grapevine they'd bought her out. Paid her to leave quietly. Just gone. The whole thing felt anticlimactic, like watching structural failure in slow motion. Just gravity doing its work. I thought that was the end of it. Move on. Build something new. The settlement terms were brutal. Non-disparagement clause that gagged Evelyn and the board. Escrow account for the licensing fees. Quarterly audits to verify compliance. My lawyer had negotiated a clawback provision. If they tried to rebuild Atlas without permission, the whole deal unwound, and I could pursue full damages. The board minutes from that month leaked through a compliance friend. Leadership reshuffle. CFO retired. VP of Operations reassigned. Jason demoted to individual contributor with a performance improvement plan. 3 directors resigned rather than face shareholder questions. Then I got a voicemail. Late Thursday night. Number I didn't recognize. Almost deleted it without listening. Alex, it's Evelyn. I hit pause. Stared at my phone. I know you don't want to hear from me. The way I treated you was wrong. I destroyed everything. The company. People's jobs. My career. I was arrogant and stupid. You deserved better. I know you won't respond, but I needed you to know. I listened to it once, then blocked the number. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks. They fired me at 50 by email. After 18 years, pack your desk, you're dead weight. That night, the deal lawyers called. We can't close the $180 million merger without your patent. I smiled. Then your CEO can beg. He went pale. Subreddit. The email came at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Not a phone call. Not a meeting. Not even the courtesy of a Zoom call where they pretend to look sad. Just a form letter that probably got sent to a dozen people that week. Your services are no longer required, effective immediately. Please return all company property by end of business day. HR will contact you regarding final compensation and termination of benefits. I read it 3 times. Felt my chest tighten. 18 years, and this is how it ends? A copy-paste email some HR intern probably drafted? That email just became the biggest mistake NextCore Solutions ever made. I, 50 male, was sitting in my cube when it came through. Middle of debugging a memory leak that had been crashing their payment processing system for 3 days. The kind of problem that makes junior developers cry and senior management panic. I'd been there since 6 a.m., trying to track down the issue because Ethan, our genius CEO, had promised a client demo by Friday. The irony? I'd just found the bug. 20 minutes before the email arrived, I'd isolated the issue to a race condition in the async payment handler. The fix was elegant too. Just needed to implement a mutex lock on the transaction queue and add a retry mechanism with exponential backoff. Would have taken me another hour to write the code, maybe 2 hours to test it properly. I'd already drafted the commit message in my head. Ethan's client demo? That was happening because of me. Or it would have been, if they hadn't just fired the only person who understood their entire payment infrastructure. The junior devs would stare at that bug for weeks before giving up and calling an expensive consultant who'd charge triple my salary to fix what I could have done in an afternoon. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I packed my desk in 20 minutes. Laptop, cables, the coffee mug Dylan gave me last Christmas. Security watched me load everything into a box like I might steal the staplers. Ethan didn't come down to say goodbye. None of the executives did. Just HR sending me out with an escort like I was some kind of threat. 18 years. Gone in 20 minutes. I drove home thinking about rent, about how long my savings would last, about explaining to my ex-wife Dana that alimony payments might be late, about the job market for 50-year-old engineers who hadn't interviewed in nearly 2 decades. My 1-bedroom apartment felt smaller when I walked in at 4:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. Still $2,800 a month. Still too expensive now that I had 0 income and no prospects. I made a sandwich, ate it standing at the counter, cracked open an energy drink even though it was barely 5 p.m. Then I sat on my couch and stared at my phone like it might have answers. It buzzed around 6 p.m. Text from Dylan, one of the junior developers I'd trained. Scott, what happened? Ethan just sent an all-hands email saying we're streamlining operations. Everyone's freaking out. Are you okay? I typed back. I'm fine. Just got restructured out. You'll be fine too. Keep your head down and do good work. Dylan, this feels wrong. You built half this company. Me. Doesn't matter who built it. Matters who signs the checks. I didn't hear back from Dylan after that. Probably smart on his part. Getting too friendly with fired employees is a good way to become one. The next few days were a blur of applications and rejection emails. Every job posting wanted someone younger, cheaper, more desperate. Age discrimination is illegal, but nobody tells you that to your face. They just say, we're going with a candidate who's a better cultural fit, or we're looking for someone with more recent experience in frameworks you invented 15 years ago. By Friday, I'd applied to 63 jobs. Got 17 automated rejections. Got 46 silences that felt worse than rejection. Saturday morning, I ate cereal and scrolled LinkedIn, looking at pictures of people still employed. Former colleagues posting about team lunches and company milestones. Ethan updating his profile to mention the merger he'd been working on for 6 months. Big tech acquisition. Nextcore getting bought by Vortex Solutions for $180 million. Ethan's big payday. The thing he'd been bragging about since January. I was about to close the app when a notification popped up. News article. Nextcore Solutions. $180 million Vortex acquisition stalls amid due diligence crisis. I sat up straight, read the article twice. The merger Ethan had been bragging about for 6 months was falling apart. Something about intellectual property disputes. Vortex Solutions was conducting additional technical review of Nextcore's core assets. My phone buzzed again. Text from Dylan. Scott, are you seeing this? Everyone here is losing their minds. HR is running around with boxes. Ethan locked himself in his office. It's something about the legacy platform code. Legacy platform code. That was my work. I got up and walked to my desk, started digging through old papers until I found what I was looking for. Gray external hard drive, dusty as heck. Back in 2006, before Nextcore got paranoid about security, we all kept local copies of code. I plugged it in, found the adaptive load distribution module I'd written 18 years ago. The thing that let Nextcore scale from 100 users to 100,000 without the whole system collapsing. I didn't need the code to prove anything. The patent was the real leverage. But seeing the actual work again reminded me exactly what I'd built and when. Then I remembered a conversation from 18 years ago. An old systems engineer I trusted, retired IBM guy who'd seen every corporate trick. He'd pulled me aside after an all-hands meeting where Ethan took credit for my architecture redesign. Scott, you wrote that load balancer on your own time, right? On your personal machine? Look at your contract dates. You wrote this as a freelancer before they brought you on full-time. There's a gap. Any IP created by contractor on personal equipment outside billable hours remains contractor property until formally assigned. You need to file a patent, now. He'd watched 3 startups pull this same move in the 80s. Engineers building everything, executives claiming ownership, then those engineers getting fired right before acquisition payouts. They always think they're clever, he'd said. They never check the dates. I thought he was paranoid, but I respected him, so I filed, paid the fees out of pocket, sent it to the USPTO and forgot about it. Until tonight, I dug through my files, found it buried in a folder called Legal Stuff, Letter from the US, Patent and Trademark Office, Patent number 8532991, Adaptive Load Distribution in Decentralized Modular Architectures. Inventor, Scott Walsh. Status, granted, not assigned to Nextcore Solutions. Just me. My hands started shaking. This was it. This was the nuclear option I didn't even know I had. Ethan had just tried to sell a car he didn't own, and the buyer had figured it out during due diligence. That's what was stopping the deal. Vortex's lawyers had done their homework, traced the IP chain of title, and found a dead end where Nextcore's ownership should have been. Every acquisition agreement has an IP warranty clause. Ethan had signed warranties he couldn't back up, and he didn't even know it yet. I stared at that patent document for about 20 minutes straight. Patent number 8532991. My name. My invention. Not Nextcore's. The adaptive load distribution system wasn't some minor feature you could rip out and replace. It was the entire backbone of their platform. Without it, Nextcore's software couldn't handle more than a few hundred concurrent users before the whole system started timing out and crashing. With it, they'd scaled to hundreds of thousands of users across multiple industries. It was the reason Vortex wanted to buy them in the first place. And I owned it. Not Ethan. Not Nextcore's investors. Not the board of directors. Me. I called my attorney Monday morning. She was an IP attorney I'd worked with years ago when Nextcore tried to patent one of my database optimization techniques. She'd helped me navigate that mess. Made sure my name stayed on the patent alongside the company's. She was expensive, but she was thorough. Scott, she said when she answered. I haven't heard from you in what, 3 years? 4. And I need your help again. What's the situation? I got fired last week. Company's trying to complete a merger. I own a patent they think they can sell. They can't. Tell me more. I explained the whole situation. The firing, the merger, the patent I'd filed 18 years ago. My attorney listened without interrupting, which I appreciated. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Scott, do you understand what you're sitting on? A patent? Leverage. Serious leverage. If this adaptive load distribution system is as critical as you say, then Nextcore can't complete this acquisition without your permission. And Vortex can't acquire what Nextcore doesn't own. So what do? Nothing yet. Let me review the patent, your employment contracts, and the acquisition timeline. Don't contact anyone at Nextcore. Don't respond to any emails or calls. Let me handle this. How long will it take? Give me 48 hours. My attorney called back Wednesday afternoon. Scott, this is better than I thought. Your freelance agreement from 2006 explicitly states that any IP created on personal equipment outside billable hours remains contractor property unless formally assigned. You wrote this code 3 days before your full-time employment began. Nextcore never requested assignment, never paid for it, never even acknowledged the patent existed. So I'm good? You're bulletproof. I'm going to draft a letter to Nextcore's legal team and Vortex's counsel. Polite but firm. You own patent 8532991. Any use or transfer requires your explicit permission. And right now, you're not giving permission. What happens next? They panic. Then they call me. Then we negotiate. The panic came faster than expected. Friday morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered because I wanted to hear how they'd spin this. Mr. Walsh? Male voice. Professional. Stressed. Like a man watching his career implode in real time. This is Nextcore's general counsel. I need to speak with you urgently about patent 8532991. You can speak with my attorney. Mr. Walsh, I understand you're upset about your termination, but this is a separate matter. We need to resolve this quickly. The Vortex acquisition is between Nextcore and Vortex, not me. You're being difficult. I'm being represented by counsel. Talk to my attorney. I hung up. My attorney called 10 minutes later, laughing. They're freaking out. He just called me screaming about interference with contract and threatened litigation. I told him to go ahead and sue. He backed down immediately. What now? Now we wait. They'll try Ethan next. She was right. Ethan called Saturday morning. I was drinking coffee and watching reruns when his name popped up on my phone. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but another part, the petty, vindictive part, wanted to hear what he'd say. I answered. Ethan. Scott. His voice had that fake friendly tone he used with clients. Hey, I know things ended badly last week. I want to apologize for that. It was a business decision, nothing personal. Okay. Look, I'm calling about the patent situation. Their lawyer mentioned you have some concerns about IP ownership. I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. I own patent 8532991. You don't. That's pretty clear. Scott, come on. You wrote that code while working for Nextcore. You used our resources, our infrastructure. I wrote it on my personal laptop during a weekend before I was even a full-time employee. On my own time. An old mentor told me to file the patent, and I did. Nextcore never asked for it. This is going to kill the merger. That's your problem, not mine. 47 people are going to lose their jobs because you're being vindictive. That stung, but I kept my voice level. 47 people are going to lose their jobs because you tried to sell assets you don't own. I'm just the guy who noticed. Scott, please. We can work something out. Name your price. I'm not interested in working with you, Ethan. Talk to my attorney. I hung up before he could respond. Then I did something I hadn't planned on doing. Something that would change how this whole thing played out. I texted Dylan. I'm not trying to screw you. I'm trying to keep you employed. Tell people to stop calling me and tell them to document everything Ethan says. Dylan responded 20 minutes later. What's happening? Can't discuss details. Just know I'm working to protect engineering. Don't sign anything new without reading it. Back up your personal stuff. Update resumes. Are we getting laid off? Not if I can help it. Then I sent an email to the engineering team distribution list. Not to executives, just engineers. Short, calm, team. I can't discuss details about what's happening with the merger, but I want you to know I'm working to protect engineering jobs. Don't sign anything new without reading it carefully. Back up personal files. Keep your resumes current. Document everything management tells you about the situation. Scott. Within an hour, I started getting responses. Not angry, not accusing, confused, concerned, but supportive. One engineer. Whatever you're doing, thank you for thinking of us. Another. Ethan tried blaming you in the all hands yesterday. Nobody's buying it. We know this is on him. Dylan. People are asking what they should do. Ethan won't answer basic questions. That was important. Ethan was losing the room. He'd tried to turn them against me, but engineers aren't stupid. They see patterns. They ask questions. And when leadership can't answer those questions, they start recording. My attorney called Monday morning. Scott, I just got off the phone with Vortex's general counsel. They want to meet. You, me, Ethan, and their legal team. When? Thursday, in San Francisco. What are they offering? They didn't say, but Vortex's general counsel was very interested in the engineering team. Asked if you had relationships with key technical staff. I told him you trained most of them. What does that mean? It means Vortex is thinking about alternatives. They might not need NextCore at all. Ethan tried everything that week. Tuesday morning, NextCore's IT department called demanding I return the external hard drive with proprietary code. I told them to talk to my attorney. She sent them a cease and desist letter explaining that my personal backups weren't their leverage point. The patent was. The code was just my personal reference to confirm dates and authorship. They backed off. Wednesday, NextCore's HR department sent a letter claiming my possession of proprietary development artifacts violated my employment agreement. They were trying to frame my ownership of my own code as theft. My attorney shut that down too. But Ethan's approach was different. He went directly after the team. Dylan called Wednesday evening. His voice was shaky. Scott, Ethan came down to the engineering floor today. He gathered everyone in the conference room. He was really intense. What did he say? He said the deal might fall through because of legal complications with legacy code. Said if that happens, the whole department gets laid off. Everyone's freaking out. I felt my jaw tighten. Ethan was using them as hostages. Dylan, listen carefully. Ethan is lying to you. The deal isn't falling apart because of me. It's falling apart because he tried to sell technology he doesn't own. I know, Dylan whispered, but people are scared. Some people are panicking. What are people saying? Ethan tried blaming you. Said you're holding the company hostage. But here's the thing. Nobody really bought it. Ethan wouldn't answer when people asked direct questions. He just kept repeating one person and disgruntled employee. People started looking at each other like something was off. That was good. The team was seeing through Ethan's nonsense. How bad is it? I asked. People are confused. They don't know what to believe. But Ethan's making it worse. He won't give straight answers. Dylan recorded part of the meeting on his phone because Ethan was being so weird about documentation. Smart. Scott, what's really happening? I can't discuss details, but I need you to trust me. Whatever happens with this deal, I'm making sure the engineering team is protected. That's my priority. How? You'll see. Just keep documenting everything Ethan says. And tell people to stay calm. This isn't going to end the way Ethan thinks it will. Over the next 2 days, I got more calls and texts from team members. But they weren't angry calls demanding I stop. They were different. One engineer. Ethan said you're blocking the merger. But this feels wrong. What should we do? Another. Ethan wouldn't explain the legal issue when I asked. Just said, Scott's being difficult. What aren't they telling us? Dylan sent me a screenshot. Ethan's Slack message to the engineering channel. Legal complications from a former employee. Can't discuss specifics. Trust that leadership is handling it. No details, no transparency. Just corporate speak that made people more suspicious, not less. Even the VP of engineering, the one who'd signed off on my termination, sent a careful text. Whatever you're planning, I hope it works out for the team. The team wasn't against me. They were watching, waiting, trying to figure out who to trust, and Ethan was losing them. Vortex Solutions headquarters was a glass tower in downtown San Francisco. Intimidating lobby. Expensive everything. The kind of place where the coffee machines probably cost more than my car. I barely slept the night before. Kept running through scenarios in my head. What if they sided with Ethan? What if I was walking into an ambush? But walking through those doors Thursday morning with my attorney beside me, I didn't feel intimidated. I felt like a 50-year-old engineer with 18 years of corporate battle scars and the deed to a technology empire. The conference room on the 32nd floor was set up like a tribunal. Long walnut table, leather chairs that probably cost 1,500 each, windows overlooking the bay. At the head sat Vortex's general counsel, silver hair, sharp eyes that had seen every corporate maneuver in the book, and sitting next to him, looking like he'd aged 5 years and 3 days, was Ethan. Ethan's usual navy suit was wrinkled. His tie wasn't quite straight. The golden boy facade was cracking under pressure. When he saw me walk in, his jaw clenched so hard, I could see it from across the room. "Scott," Ethan said, not standing. "Didn't realize this was going to be a joint meeting." "Sit down, Mr. Cole," the general counsel said quietly. Ethan was already sitting. The comment was just to remind him who was in charge here. The Vortex general counsel looked at me and my attorney. "Mr. Walsh, counselor, thank you for coming. As you know, Vortex is finalizing the acquisition of NextCore Solutions. However, the patent ownership question has created complications." "There's no complication," Ethan interrupted. "This is a disgruntled former employee trying to leverage a paperwork error into a payday. We have comprehensive IP assignment clauses in all our employment contracts. This is extortion." My attorney slid a document across the table. "That's Mr. Walsh's original freelance agreement from 18 years ago. Section 4. Subsection C states that any intellectual property created by the contractor on personal equipment outside billable hours remains contractor property until formally assigned." Mr. Walsh wrote the adaptive load distribution logic on his personal laptop during a weekend, 3 days before his full-time employment began. He filed patent number 8532991 in his own name. NextCore never requested assignment, never paid for assignment, never even acknowledged it existed until this acquisition started falling apart. The general counsel picked up the document, read it carefully. His expression didn't change, but I saw his eyes narrow slightly when he got to the dates. He looked at Ethan. "Is this accurate?" "It's a technicality. The spirit of the agreement was that all development work belonged to NextCore. Actually, I worked from home that weekend because the office computers were garbage," I said. "And the spirit of the law doesn't matter in federal court. You know that, Ethan. You just thought I was too stupid to figure out I owned something valuable." Ethan's face went red. "Don't you dare." "Dare what? Tell the truth? You built your entire company on technology you never owned. You sold that company to Vortex for $180 million. And now you're sitting in this conference room, realizing you can't deliver what you promised. This is interference with contract. I have investors, board obligations, 47 employees who are going to lose their jobs because you're being petty." "I'm not being petty, Ethan. I'm being smart. Something you should have tried before firing your lead architect." The silence in that room was deafening. Everyone waiting to see who'd break first. The general counsel held up a hand. "Gentlemen, let's keep this professional." He turned to me. "Mr. Walsh, what's your actual goal here?" "Good question. Direct. No nonsense. My goal is simple. I want the engineers protected. The people who actually built this company while Ethan took credit at investor meetings. They're talented. They're hardworking. They deserve better than getting laid off because their CEO tried to sell assets he doesn't own." Ethan laughed, bitter and sharp. "Oh, that's rich. You're doing this for the team? People are panicking right now. You're destroying their livelihoods to make a point." "No, Ethan. You destroyed their livelihoods when you tried to pull off this merger without doing basic legal due diligence. I'm just the guy who noticed." The general counsel checked his watch. "Mr. Walsh, let me be direct. Vortex is interested in your technology. We're interested in the engineering team that understands it. We mapped your organization. We know who actually runs it. What would it take for you to license this patent directly to Vortex?" And there it was. Ethan went pale. "Wait, we have a signed acquisition agreement. You can't just..." "The acquisition agreement is contingent on clear title to all intellectual property," the general counsel said, not looking at Ethan, "which NextCore can't provide. That gives us grounds to terminate. Section 7.3, material breach. Your IP warranty was false. The deal's dead unless we choose to restructure it. But the company is worthless without this deal. The board will sue me. The investors will sue me. I'll lose everything. That's not Vortex's problem," the general counsel said coldly. "That's yours." He slid a folder across the table to Ethan. "Our legal team drafted exit papers once this surfaced. Section 7.3 gives us clean exit rights. We've already notified our board. This meeting is a courtesy, Mr. Cole. The acquisition is dead whether you like it or not." Ethan turned to me. For a second, his mask dropped completely. I saw real fear in his eyes. "Scott, please. We can work something out. Name your price. Just don't do this." I looked at him for a long moment. Thought about all the times he'd taken credit for my work. All the late nights I'd fixed his mistakes. The email that fired me without explanation. Actually, Ethan, I am going to work something out. With Vortex, not with you. The general counsel nodded. Mr. Walsh, we'd like to offer you a licensing agreement. Exclusive rights to the patent. You'll oversee technical integration. But before we discuss your compensation, I need to know, what are your conditions? I leaned forward. I have one non-negotiable condition. Employment offers for NextCore's entire engineering staff. Competitive salaries. Full benefits. Before I sign anything, the general counsel exchanged a glance with his CTO. That aligns with our backup plan. We vetted staff, but it's going to impact the licensing fee structure. I understand. The hiring cost can come out of my compensation. Ethan stood up fast enough to knock his chair back. You can't do this. I built this company. 7 years of my life. We're not stealing anything, the general counsel said. We're negotiating with the actual owner of the assets we want. You're welcome to sue us if you think you have grounds. Security appeared at the door. Ethan looked at them, then at me, then at the general counsel. This isn't over, Ethan said. Yes, it is, I said. You're just figuring it out late. They escorted Ethan out. The room got very quiet after the door closed. The general counsel looked at my attorney and me. Well, that was clarifying. Now let's discuss actual terms. And Mr. Walsh, I want you to understand something. The engineering hiring package was already in our plans. We're not taking that out of your licensing fee. You're getting both. The licensing agreement took 6 days to finalize. My attorney and I sat in that conference room for hours each day, fighting over every clause. Vortex's general counsel was tough but fair. He understood the value of what I was offering, which meant he pushed hard on price. The money was good. 7-figure upfront licensing payment, plus annual royalties tied to platform usage, plus equity in the combined entity, plus my consulting compensation package. And that didn't include the employment package for the team. The best part was still Clause 8. Vortex Solutions agrees to offer employment to all 47 members of NextCore's engineering staff at 15% salary increases, with full benefits and equity grants, effective immediately upon deal closure. These offers are made at the express recommendation of Scott Walsh as part of the licensing agreement. I'd saved my team, and they'd know it was me. This is unusual, the general counsel said when we finalized that clause. Most licensing deals don't include hiring conditions. But my CTO says your team is worth it. And honestly, you taking less money so they get hired? That's the kind of integrity we want in our technical leadership. I took enough. I didn't need to take everything. My attorney shook my hand after we signed. Scott, you just pulled off something I've never seen in 20 years of IP litigation. You took a failing company's core asset and turned it into a better deal for everyone except the people who screwed you over. That was the goal. We signed the papers the following Wednesday afternoon. My hand actually shook slightly when I put pen to paper. 18 years of work, compressed into a single signature. Trade blogs started hitting Thursday morning. Trade blogs. NextCore deal stalls over patent chain. Tech press rumor mill. Ethan Cole's IP story falls apart. Vortex insiders. Licensing talks underway with NextCore's original architect. My phone started blowing up around 10 a.m., but the call I was waiting for came from Dylan. Scott, what the heck is happening? Vortex's HR team just emailed the entire engineering department. They're offering us jobs, 15% raises, better benefits, better equity. And the email specifically says, this hiring decision is part of the licensing agreement negotiated with Scott Walsh. You earned it, Dylan. All of you did. Ethan's gone. The board fired him this morning. Security escorted out of the building fired. They're liquidating the company. Selling off everything except the engineering team, which Vortex is hiring. Finally, some justice. Scott? Dylan's voice got quieter. People are talking. They know what you did. Ethan tried blaming you in that all-hands meeting, but nobody bought it. And when this email landed with your name on it, everyone understood. You demanded we get hired as a condition of your deal. I wasn't going to let Ethan use you as collateral damage. Some people thought you were just trying to tank the company out of spite, but you were protecting us the whole time. I told you to trust me. You did, and we should have listened from the start. Thank you, Scott, for everything. You're welcome. Now get back to work. Vortex is a good company. Don't waste the opportunity. The rest of the day was chaos in the best way. More calls from former colleagues, more thank yous. More people who doubted me now understanding what I'd actually been doing. One engineer called, "Wait, I heard the hiring costs came out of your licensing fee. Is that true? You took less money so we'd all get hired?" I took enough. You guys are the ones who actually built the platform. You should benefit from it. Man, that's really solid of you. Don't make it weird. Another team member sent a text. You're a legend. Thank you for having our backs when leadership didn't. Dylan sent a voice note. Dude, I just connected the dots. When you told us to document everything, you were building the case that Ethan was losing control. That's chess level stuff. Even the VP of engineering, the one who'd signed off on my termination, called to apologize. Scott, I'm sorry. Ethan told us the IP situation was handled. We didn't question it. That's on us. Yeah, it is. For what it's worth, you did the right thing. Better thing than I would have done. Probably. Nothing prepared me for the 6 p.m. phone call, though. Dana. She didn't call to ask how I was. She called because she'd seen the headlines and her lawyer wanted to revisit support. My attorney didn't even bite on the income argument. She asked one question. Has she remarried? Turns out she had. Quiet courthouse paperwork. New last name showing up on a couple filings. I didn't know because I wasn't tracking her life like a hobby. In California, spousal support terminates on the supported spouse's remarriage unless the order says otherwise, and ours didn't. My attorney filed the termination paperwork. Payments stopped. A week later, I got a voicemail that started with, I've been thinking about us, and ended with, I made a mistake. No real apology, just panic that the check wasn't coming anymore. I texted back, please communicate through counsel. She didn't leave another voicemail. Then, NextCore's board tried to get involved. They sent their own lawyer to mediate the situation. Translation. They wanted to see if they could salvage anything from the wreckage Ethan had created. The board is willing to assign any disputed claims to the patent, their lawyer said during one of the negotiation sessions. In exchange, we'd like Mr. Walsh to consider a settlement that allows NextCore to remain part of the transaction. NextCore doesn't have any claims to assign, my attorney said. They never owned the patent. That's the whole problem. But surely there's room for negotiation here. The company has value beyond just the patent. No, it doesn't, the general counsel said bluntly. We've reviewed everything. Without the patent, NextCore is worthless to us. We're moving forward with direct licensing from Mr. Walsh. The board's lawyer left looking defeated. The fallout moved fast once the deal closed. Ethan was gone by Friday. The board fired him for material breach of his employment contract, specifically the IP warranty clause. He lost his equity, his severance, everything. Last I heard, he was trying to start a consulting business. Good luck with that. The board liquidated NextCore within 3 weeks. Sold off the office furniture, the lease, everything that wasn't nailed down. Paid back investors at pennies on the dollar. Some of them tried to sue, but they didn't have grounds. Due diligence failure isn't fraud when the seller genuinely didn't know. Ethan genuinely didn't know. He'd been so convinced he owned everything that he never bothered to check. But the best part was watching the engineering team thrive at Vortex. Dylan got promoted to senior developer within 4 months. Other team members became leads for performance optimization and DevOps integration. All the people Ethan had treated as replaceable, they were flourishing. I settled into my new role as technical advisor. Good salary, better benefits, respect from people who understood what I'd built. And exactly 6 months after that meeting in San Francisco, I got a call I wasn't expecting. Ethan wanted to meet. We met at a coffee shop in Palo Alto, neutral territory. I arrived early, took a seat facing the door. Ethan walked in at 2:15 p.m., 15 minutes late. He looked terrible. The expensive suit was gone, replaced by jeans and a button-down that had seen better days. The confident swagger was gone too. He looked like someone who'd been punched in the face by reality and was still trying to figure out what happened. He ordered a coffee and sat down across from me without asking if the seat was taken. Scott, Ethan. We sat there for a moment. I didn't say anything. This was his meeting. He called it. He could start. I wanted to apologize, he finally said. Okay. For everything. For firing you without explanation. For trying to blame you when the deal fell apart. For using the team against you. Okay. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say, Ethan? You did all those things. Apology noted. Doesn't change anything. He ran his hand through his hair. Looked out the window. Looked back at me. I lost everything. The company's gone. My reputation's destroyed. Nobody will work with me. I can't get funding. Can't get hired. I'm 43 years old and I'm starting over from zero. Sounds rough. I'm not asking for sympathy. I know I messed up. But I'm asking for a second chance. Some kind of opportunity. You're connected now. You have influence at Vortex. Maybe you could... No. Scott. No, Ethan. I'm not going to help you. His face hardened. Why not? You got everything you wanted. The team's safe. You're making money. You won. Why can't you just... Because you still don't get it. Then explain it to me. I don't owe you an explanation. Ethan's jaw clenched. So that's it? You're going to hold a grudge forever? I'm not holding a grudge. I'm just not interested. He stood up. You know what, Scott? You're not better than me. You're just luckier. You happened to file a patent 18 years ago. That's it. That's the only reason you won. Even now, he didn't get it. Still thought this was about luck. Still thought I won on a technicality. I stood up too. Looked him in the eye. I filed that patent because someone smarter than both of us told me to protect my work. You thought you owned everything because you had a fancy title. Turns out you didn't. I walked to the door. Turned back once. Good luck with the consulting business. He didn't respond. Just sat there looking defeated. I walked outside. The afternoon sun hit my face. I took a breath. Let it out slowly. Ethan wasn't my problem anymore. He was a cautionary tale. A reminder that you can't fake experience. You can't take credit for other people's work forever. Eventually, the foundation cracks. And when it does, the people who actually built it are the only ones who know how to fix it. 3 days later, I got a text from Dylan. New project kicked off today. Big integration with the legacy systems. Vortex's GC asked me to lead it. Said you recommended me specifically. Told him you were the reason I know how to architect these things in the first place. I smiled. Typed back, you earned it. Now go build something great. Because that's what it comes down to. You build things. You protect your team. You don't beg for respect. You earn it by doing work that matters. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks. My boss fired me after 10 years of unpaid weekends saying, "You're nothing but cheap labor. You're nobody." So I went nuclear. Now he's begging me to come back. Hey, Reddit. So yeah, I just watched my former boss's company get exposed in real time. 6 weeks is how long it took for the market to notice what was rotting underneath. And honestly, I'm sleeping like a baby. Haven't slept this good since before I started working there. Every morning I wake up, check my phone, and see the same thing. Doug's procurement flags spreading through hospital networks. CAPA count climbing. Vendor status reviews piling up. I track it all in a spreadsheet. Same one I used to track my weekends. It's like watching a sports score, except I already know who wins. Here's the setup. I, 33 male, spent 10 years as the lead engineer at a boutique medical imaging calibration firm. We made specialized equipment that hospitals need to keep their MRI machines running within spec. Super niche market, $200,000 per unit, maybe 15 companies nationwide that do what we do. The kind of industry where you can't fake expertise because hospital procurement departments are compliance sharks, and a miscalibrated MRI can give doctors wrong information about tumors or brain injuries. One mistake gets you blacklisted. No room for error. I was employee number 3. Watched this company grow from a garage startup to 8 figures annually. Worked 517 weekends in a row. Yeah, I counted. I kept a spreadsheet because I had a rule. If it's not in writing, it didn't happen. So I documented everything. The spreadsheet, the emails, the promises. My boss, let's call him Doug, never paid me overtime. Not once. Called the weekend work voluntary, but kept a mental scoreboard of who answered calls. His favorite line was always the same. You're salaried. This is what leadership looks like. Meanwhile, he's dangling a VP of engineering promotion every time I asked about it. Keep grinding. VP role is yours once we cross 10 million annually. We crossed that threshold 18 months ago. Got an email back that said, not the right time. Focus on the work. I missed my sister's wedding for this company. Had to watch it on a video call from my home office while simultaneously troubleshooting a calibration error for a hospital in Frankfurt. Doug's response when I mentioned it? That's dedication. The company appreciates employees who understand priorities. The company. Like the building itself was going to send me a thank you card. But I was good at what I did. Really good. 6 patents on calibration algorithms. The patents were filed in my name back when we were tiny because Doug didn't want to pay to do proper assignments yet. The company just had an exclusive license to use them while I was employed. Wrote the entire software stack from scratch. Built the client relationships one phone call at a time over 10 years. Clients asked for me by name. Not the company, me. Had a hospital network VP once tell Doug in a meeting, "We only trust your guy. If he's not on the call, we're not signing." Another time, a procurement director refused to talk to anyone else when their machine went down. Told Doug's sales team, "Get me the engineer or we're switching vendors." Doug knew it. Everyone knew it. I was the product. I had a partner, Kayla. Met her at a conference 2 years ago, proposed 8 months later. She worked in med device sales for a competitor, which made Doug paranoid I was leaking trade secrets. I wasn't. But that didn't stop him from making comments in meetings about how convenient it was that my girlfriend understood the industry so well. 4 months ago, a Friday at 4:47 in the afternoon, Doug called me into his office. That specific time should have been my first warning sign. Nothing good ever happens at 4:47 on a Friday. That's the time slot reserved for conversations your boss doesn't want you to have time to process before the weekend. A woman I'd never seen before was sitting there when I walked in. Mid-40s maybe, wearing a blazer that still had the price tag sticking out of the sleeve. Doug was chewing gum, looking relaxed. Like this was just another Tuesday. Doug introduced her as Pamela, brought in to help modernize our engineering processes while we search for permanent leadership. She had that yoga instructor energy. Warm smile, lots of hand gestures when she talked. Doug leaned back in his chair with that smug look he always got when he thought he was about to win something. We're restructuring. Pamela is stepping in as interim VP of Product Quality Transformation. Consulting basis initially, then we'll see where it goes. The VP role, the one he dangled for 18 months since we hit the revenue target. The one I'd sacrificed weekends and holidays and my sister's wedding for. He was handing it to someone who looked like she'd just walked out of a hot yoga class. I looked at her. I looked at him. I looked back at her. What's your technical background? She grinned like she'd just won a prize at a carnival. Engineering is just problem solving, right? I'm great at that. I solved all kinds of problems running a wellness business. Scheduling conflicts, equipment maintenance, customer complaints. It's all the same skill set when you really think about it. I didn't say what I was thinking, which was that calibrating medical imaging equipment is slightly more complex than deciding which yoga mats to order. Doug cut in before I could respond. We're letting you go. Effective immediately. And before you get any ideas about going to a competitor or starting something yourself, you signed a non-compete agreement. 2 years, no medical imaging work. You're done in this industry. He leaned forward with this satisfied expression. You're not special, buddy. You're just cheap labor that got too expensive. We can find another engineer, probably someone younger who doesn't expect so much. I leaned back, smiled. The kind of smile you give when someone just showed you all their cards and they're holding nothing but junk. Send me everything in writing, I said. Stood up, straightened my jacket. The termination letter, the non-compete, all of it. I want documentation. Doug looked confused for a second, like he expected me to argue or beg. You know what the best part of this conversation is, Doug? You think you're firing me, but what you actually just did is trigger every reversion clause in those 6 patents I filed. The ones your entire product line depends on. Employment termination means license renegotiation. It's right there in the contracts. Page 7, Section 3, Subsection B, you signed them. Remember? Doug's smile faltered. Just for a second. But hey, I'm sure Pamela here can figure that out. She's great at problem solving. I looked at her. Good luck with the calibration algorithms. They're only the core of everything this company manufactures. But I'm sure YouTube has some tutorials. I walked out before he could respond. Didn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me pack. Didn't say goodbye to anyone. The security guard who escorted me was a guy I'd known for 8 years. Good guy. We used to chat about his kids, his wife's health issues, the fishing trip he was planning for retirement. Now he had to walk me out like I was a criminal. He wouldn't make eye contact, just kept looking at the floor. I didn't blame him, he was just doing his job. But it hit different, you know? Having someone you've known for almost a decade treat you like a stranger, because the guy who signs their paycheck told them to. I packed my box slowly. Photos of me with clients at installation ceremonies. A thank you card from a hospital network CEO after I flew out on Christmas Eve to fix an emergency. So a small trophy from when we hit our first million in revenue. My coffee mug that said, World's Okayest Engineer, which was a gift from Nathan 3 Christmases ago. 10 years of work crammed into a cardboard box that weighed maybe 8 pounds. First thing I did when I got home was build a client continuity plan. Spreadsheet. Every hospital network we served. Contact names, support history, escalation paths. Who called who when things went wrong? I knew this company's client relationships better than anyone because I'd built most of them myself. That list was going to be my roadmap. Then I told Kayla what happened. Her reaction wasn't what I expected. Wait, he fired you? She looked panicked. Not concerned. Panicked. Like I just told her I had a terminal illness. Oh my God, what are we going to do? The wedding is in 6 months. My parents already put down deposits. We have a mortgage. We have bills. This is really bad timing. I just stared at her. I just lost my job. I know, but do you have a plan? Because from what you're telling me, it sounds like you just accepted it. You didn't even try to negotiate. There was nothing to negotiate. He fired me. But you're just going to let him? God, I can't believe this is happening right now. That's when I realized we had a problem. But I had other things to focus on. Starting with documentation. That weekend after getting fired, I didn't rage, didn't throw things, didn't post angry messages on social media. I got to work. My attorney reviewed everything and basically confirmed Doug's non-compete threat was posturing. Set up an LLC, got business insurance, drafted contracts. Monday morning, my attorney sent formal notice by certified mail that the license terms required renegotiation within 30 days, or they'd terminate. Nothing emotional, just clean documentation and a paper trail. My attorney also sent courtesy notices to Doug's distributor and liability insurer, professional, procedural, just informing them that licensing would terminate on a specific date unless new terms were agreed to. No drama. Just making sure everyone who needed to know about the IP situation was properly informed. Doug had 30 days to figure out he was screwed. By Monday afternoon, I had my first client call scheduled with a hospital network I'd worked with for years. Kayla got colder when she found out I was consulting instead of looking for a real job. Consulting is unstable. You need to think about our future. My sister's husband has benefits, retirement, security. I ignored her. Meanwhile, Nathan was settling into what would become the greatest documentation project of his career. Nathan was employee number 4. Started 2 weeks after me back when the company was still operating out of Doug's garage. Most people knew him as the funny guy, always cracking jokes, keeping morale up during the long hours. He'd bring donuts on Monday mornings and remember everyone's birthday. But Nathan had a secret weapon that almost nobody knew about. He was obsessed with documentation, in the best possible way. This guy kept records of everything. Every email chain, every meeting note, every decision that got made, and who made it. He had a filing system that would make an archivist weep with joy, and he'd been doing it for 10 years, quietly building a paper trail that documented every single thing that happened at that company. The day I got fired, Nathan texted me, "This is absolute garbage. What do you need from me?" I told him, "Everything you've got. Every email, every decision, every screw-up. Document what Pamela does going forward. Get her approval in writing for everything. And when you need approval for anything, use this exact subject line format. Approval required. Specific change. Impact analysis attached. Make them confirm in writing." Nathan replied, "Oh, I'm going to build a museum of incompetence. And you're getting copies of everything." And man, he did exactly that. Week 1. Pamela decides the software needs a more intuitive user experience and wants to remove confusing technical information from the interface. Nathan documents everything, gets her approval in writing with a smiley face emoji, and implements it exactly as she requested. The new interface breaks compatibility with every unit shipped in the last 5 years. A German hospital's $200,000 machine starts throwing errors their techs have never seen. Nathan sends me the entire email chain within an hour. Pamela's approval. The technical specs she ignored. The warning he gave her. Everything. I forward it to the hospital network's procurement director. Subject line, FYI, recent software changes at Doug's company. No commentary, no explanation, just the facts. The client escalates. Doug can't override Pamela without admitting he hired someone incompetent, and the contract terminates. $42,000 in annual revenue, gone. That hospital network calls me 2 days later for consulting. Week 2, Pamela's cost-cutting initiative. Nathan sources cheaper components per her written requirements. Ships 3 units to different hospitals in the same network. All 3 fail within 48 hours. I send the procurement director Nathan's component substitution spreadsheet and Pamela's authorization emails before they even realized what happened. They terminated the entire network. Every hospital. Gone. Then issued a CAPA request, a formal regulatory demand that goes on your record. Other hospitals can see it. Pamela tried to respond with wellness speak about aligning energies toward quality outcomes. I sent her response to 3 other procurement contacts with a note. Thought you might want to see how Doug's company handles regulatory compliance these days. That's $4.2 million in revenue gone in a week. But the real damage was the procurement flag. Non-compliant with quality standards. That flag spreads through databases. Other networks see it. Your approved vendor status goes under review everywhere. By week 3, Nathan was sending me documentation faster than I could distribute it. I didn't need to do full analyses anymore. Just forward the emails with subject lines like FYI, additional quality concerns, and let procurement directors draw their own conclusions. I help it spread. Every procurement contact I've built relationships with over 10 years gets professional courtesy emails, just making sure they're aware of compliance issues at my former employer. Suddenly, Doug's company isn't just losing one client. They're getting quietly blacklisted across institutional procurement systems nationwide. I was sitting at my home office when Nathan sent me the first version of his complete timeline document. 47 pages. Organized by incident, cross-referenced with email chains, annotated with regulatory violations. It was beautiful. Every decision Pamela made, every approval she gave, every warning she ignored, every consequence that followed. All of it documented with timestamps, email headers, and technical specifications. This is everything, Nathan's message said. Every bad call she made, every corner she cut, every disaster she caused. What do you want to do with it? What I wanted to do with it was go nuclear. I created a distribution list. Every major hospital procurement network in our market, every compliance officer I'd ever worked with, every vendor relationship manager who'd trusted me over the years, every medical device distributor that carried Doug's products. The email was simple. Subject, Quality System Documentation. Doug's Company, Engineering Decisions, Q3 to Q4. Attached, please find comprehensive documentation of recent engineering and procurement decisions at Doug's Company. This information may be relevant for your ongoing vendor assessments and compliance reviews. All documentation sourced from internal company communications and is provided for informational purposes only. I attached Nathan's 47-page timeline. Hit send. I just watched the emails start rolling in. Procurement directors requesting meetings. Compliance officers asking for additional documentation. Distributors putting Doug's company on probationary status pending investigation. The distributor was the big one. They put out a formal notice to all their hospital customers. Quality system review in progress. Doug's company products. It was corporate speak for, we're investigating whether this vendor is safe to continue carrying. That notice went to every hospital that bought through them. Hundreds of facilities across 6 states. Doug's phone must have been ringing off the hook. Meanwhile, my consulting practice was growing. First client, that German hospital network. Fixed their software disaster, got paid, moved on. Second through 6th clients, all from my mass email distribution. They saw the documentation, saw the problems, called me directly. 7th client, Doug's former largest account. They called me specifically because of Nathan's timeline. Wanted to know if I could audit their existing equipment to make sure nothing else had been compromised. I could. I did. They paid premium rates. Nathan kept sending me updates. Doug was spiraling, trying to contain the damage, trying to figure out who leaked the documentation, trying to keep his distributor relationship alive. The distributor froze new orders. More networks stopped returning emails. Doug's company was hemorrhaging clients and nobody could stop the bleeding. Then one night, I was doing background research on Pamela. LinkedIn didn't show much. Generic wellness coach profile. No medical device experience. No engineering background. Nothing that explained why Doug would hire her for a VP role. I started digging deeper. State business registrations, corporate filings, tax records that are public in our state. That's when I found it. Pamela's full legal name on a property deed. The same last name as Doug. The same property deed that had Doug's name on it. Their vacation home in Colorado. Purchased jointly 8 years ago. I pulled up more records. Marriage certificate. Filed 9 years ago. Pamela wasn't just some consultant Doug hired. She was his wife. The VP role he'd promised me for 18 months since we hit the revenue target. The role I'd sacrificed weekends and holidays for. The role I'd missed my sister's wedding for. He'd given it to his wife. I called Nathan immediately. Did you know Pamela is Doug's wife? Silence on the other end. Then, what? I just found the marriage certificate. They've been married for 9 years. The interim VP position, he gave it to his wife. Nathan started laughing. That slightly unhinged laugh you get when something is so absurd, you can't process it normally. Oh man. Oh, this is so much worse than I thought. He dressed up nepotism in corporate cosplay. Does anyone else know? I don't think so. She uses her first name professionally. Never mentioned a husband. People just assumed she was some consultant he brought in. I started pulling together everything I could find. Property records, business filings, joint tax returns that became public record due to a lien from 3 years ago. Built a complete paper trail showing that Doug had put his completely unqualified wife in charge of technical operations. What are you going to do with this? Nathan asked. Add it to the documentation package. Send an updated version to everyone who got the first one. Let them know exactly who's making engineering decisions at Doug's company. That's going to destroy him. Yeah, It is. I sent the updated documentation package that night. Same distribution list. New subject line. Updated. Quality system documentation. Additional context on leadership structure. The new email included everything: the marriage certificate, the property records, the fact that Doug had fired his lead engineer to give the VP role to his wife, the timeline of disasters that followed. Kayla saw me send it. We were barely speaking by this point, but she was still living in the house, still wearing the ring, still pretending we had a future. "You're really doing this," she said. Not a question. "Yeah." I didn't look up from my laptop. "You're going to ruin him." "Probably." She waited, like she expected more. An explanation, a justification, something she could argue with. "We're done, Kayla." She blinked. "What? Done. Over. Take your stuff and go." "You can't be serious." "Why?" I finally looked at her. "It's about who you are. You nag too much. You are causing me a headache. That's not fair." I was scared. "Yeah, you were. That's the problem." I turned back to my screen. "I don't want a woman who's scared. I want a woman who's got my back when it matters." "You're not that. You never were. I just didn't see it until now." Her voice cracked. "I love you." "I don't care." 3 words. Didn't even look at her when I said them. She stood there for a long time, waiting for me to take it back, to soften, to give her something to work with. I didn't. "So that's it? 2 years and you're just done? Leave the ring on the counter." She started crying. I kept working. 20 minutes later, the door closed. Ring was on the counter. I dropped it in a drawer and went back to my emails. She texted that night, then the next morning, then 3 more times that week. I never opened them. Eventually, she stopped. Some people show you who they are when things get easy. Others show you when things get hard. Kayla showed me plenty. The distributor formally terminated their relationship with Doug's company, released a statement about quality system concerns and leadership structure issues. Industry speak for "we read the documentation about the nepotism and disasters." 3 more networks cancel. The procurement flags have spread through their shared databases like an infection. Doug's company is effectively blacklisted from institutional sales. I decided it was time for the walkout. I called Nathan. He'd been planning it for weeks. Not a strike in the traditional sense. Engineers don't strike like miners. They strike like engineers. Clipboard energy and paperwork. Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. Nathan had prepared what he called the strike SOP, Standard Operating Procedure. Because of course he did. The document had version numbers, revision history, an attendance log, meeting minutes template, and a section titled Risk Assessment, Management May Attempt Intimidation. Every engineer got a copy the night before. Everyone knew the plan. They walked out together, all 9 of them, wearing company polos like it was a field trip. Nathan had printed signs on regular printer paper, taped to cardboard backing. Nothing fancy, nothing cute. Just facts. The signs read, "Quality systems, not vibes. Kappa is not a yoga pose. Traceability, not optional. I did not sign up to manifest compliance. Ask me about the email where she approved. I tie. We love patient safety, even if management doesn't." They stood in the parking lot with their clipboards and their signs, looking like the most boring protest in corporate history. Silent, professional, holding printed policy pages. It looked less like a strike and more like a compliance audit that wandered outside. I was parked across the street the whole time. Black coffee, windows down, front row seat to the greatest show in medical device history. Nathan knew I was there. We'd planned it. He wanted me to see this in person, and honestly, I wouldn't have missed it for another sister's wedding. Doug came out doing the chest forward thing like he was about to address troops. Started with, "This is insubordination," loud enough for the whole parking lot to hear. Then, Pamela stepped out next to him. And that's when people started putting it together. The way she touched his arm. The way he immediately softened. The way they stood together like they'd been standing together for years. Someone pulled out their phone. Started searching. Found the same property records I'd found. Within 10 minutes, everyone knew. Doug had fired his lead engineer, the guy who built the company, to give his wife a VP position she wasn't qualified for. The energy in that parking lot shifted. What had been a professional dispute became something else. Betrayal. Pure, distilled betrayal. Doug tried to regain control. Puffed up again. "Quality is just documentation anyway. Anyone can push paper." He said it loud, trying to sound tough, not realizing he'd just admitted the thing that was literally killing his business. Half the engineers started smiling. They knew the distributor had already terminated. He'd just told everyone exactly how little he valued the thing that cost him everything. That's when it happened. Mike, quiet guy, Never said much in meetings, been there 6 years, calmly walked over to the recycling bin near the entrance, pulled out an empty kombucha bottle, one of Pamela's. She'd been leaving them all over the office since day one. Lavender mint flavor. The whole building smelled like a spa that was slowly dying. Doug was mid-sentence about consequences for insubordination when Mike wound up and yeeted that empty bottle in a perfect arc across the parking lot. It bounced off Doug's chest with a hollow plastic thunk and landed at his feet. The parking lot went dead silent for about 2 seconds. Then Nathan, God bless him, yelled, "That's for making us align our chakras during sprint planning." The engineers lost it, full-on cackling. Even the security guard by the door was trying not to laugh. Doug's face went through about 6 different colors. Pamela looked like she might cry, and Mike just stood there, stone-faced, holding another empty kombucha bottle like he was ready to reload. I almost spit coffee all over my steering wheel. Doug tried to regain composure, but his voice cracked when he pointed at Mike. You just assaulted me." Mike held up his phone. "With an empty plastic bottle that your wife left in the recycling? Pretty sure that's just aggressive sustainability. Also, I'm recording this, so good luck with that HR complaint." Doug pointed at Nathan. "You're fired. Effective immediately. All of you are fired." Nathan didn't even blink. "Cool. I'll be joining the consulting firm with your old lead engineer. You know, the guy who owns the patents you need to manufacture anything?" "Yeah, we've been talking. Have been for weeks, actually." "Oh, and all that documentation I've been keeping? The 47-page timeline? The emails? The Kappa records? Already sent to everyone who matters. But thanks for the official termination. Makes the retaliation case even cleaner." He held up his phone. "By the way, I'm recording this. So's Mike. We've all got the 'you're fired' speech on video. Hope your lawyers enjoy that discovery process." Doug's face went white. He looked around at his engineering team and saw nothing but cold stares and phone cameras. Nobody was on his side. Pamela tried to say something about working together and moving forward as a team. One of the engineers laughed in her face. The walkout lasted 3 hours, but by then, I'd already made sure the right people saw what happened. Sent the video clips to the same distribution list. Subject line: leadership response to quality concerns. Video documentation. Professional. Factual. Devastating. A biomed tech at a nearby hospital snapped a photo on his phone and sent it to a vendor rep he knew. That rep forwarded it to someone in procurement. Procurement forwarded it to compliance. By the next morning, Doug's company was the subject of quiet emails with FYI in the subject line. The kind that ruin you without anyone ever raising their voice. But I didn't wait for quiet emails. I made sure it wasn't quiet. I sent the walkout videos to medical device trade publications. Thought you might find this newsworthy. Engineering team protests. Quality concerns at local medical device manufacturer. 2 publications ran stories. Nothing inflammatory. Just facts. Engineering team raises concerns about quality systems at Doug's company. They embedded the videos, quoted the signs, mentioned the distributor termination, and the Kappa requests. Suddenly, it wasn't just industry gossip. It was public record. Doug tried to backpedal that evening, sent an email saying he'd spoken in anger and nobody was actually fired. But by then, it was too late. The threat was on record. He'd shown his hand, and I'd made sure everyone saw it. Nathan and 4 other engineers officially resigned the following day. All of them joined my consulting firm. Just like that, I had a team, had expertise across the entire product line, had everything I needed to support clients directly while Doug's company continued its slow collapse. The other 4 engineers who'd been part of the walkout either stayed with Doug or found jobs elsewhere. I never followed up on where they ended up, because here's the reality that finally got through Doug's thick skull. Without those patents I own, his company can't manufacture new units, can't update existing software, can't service current equipment properly. They're dead in the water without technology they no longer have the rights to use. And I own those patents, free and clear. The 30-day negotiation window I'd filed, it expired without Doug even responding. He was too busy dealing with the procurement crisis and the press coverage to pay attention to legal deadlines. My lawyer sent a follow-up notice. Patent licenses terminated, effective immediately. Cease and desist on all manufacturing using my intellectual property. But I didn't stop there. I sent copies to every hospital network Doug still had contracts with. FYI, patent licensing status change at Doug's company. Professional courtesy, letting them know their vendor might not be able to service their equipment much longer. 6 more clients terminated within a week. Doug's attorney called my attorney 20 minutes after the patent termination went out. Tried to negotiate. Tried to threaten. My attorney told him the price was non-negotiable, and if Doug wanted to avoid a patent infringement lawsuit, he'd better start talking settlement. My attorney gave Doug a 48-hour window to sign a new licensing agreement at my terms or face litigation. The night the deadline was about to expire, Doug calls me. First time since I was fired. His voice sounds different. Tired, scared, desperate in a way I've never heard from him before. Nothing like the smug guy who told me I was just cheap labor. He starts with small talk, asks how I'm doing, mentions the weather. It's painful to listen to. Here's a guy who couldn't be bothered to say goodbye when he fired me, now trying to make pleasant conversation because he needs something. He offers to bring me back. CTO position, equity stake, whatever I want. Name my terms. He's using that tone people use when they're trying to sell you something they know is overpriced. That fake sincerity that never sounds quite right. I'm not interested in being an employee again. Not for him. Not for anyone. I know what running my own thing feels like now, and I'm not going back. He says Pamela is stepping down, admits it was a mistake, says he needs me to save the company he built. The company I built. As if the 10 years of my life I gave to that place contributed nothing. As if the patents I invented, the clients I cultivated, the problems I solved, all of that happened without me. Here's the thing, Doug, I said. I don't negotiate with people who called me cheap labor. I don't help people who gave my job to their unqualified wife. I don't save companies that are bleeding out because of their own bad decisions. Please, I'm asking as someone who's known you for 10 years. You fired someone you'd known for 10 years at 4:47 on a Friday. You called me cheap labor. You gave my VP role to your wife who thought debugging meant pest control. You put her in charge of technology she didn't understand. You ignored every warning sign. And now you want me to save you? What do you want? Money? Equity? I'll give you whatever. I don't want anything from you, Doug. I want you to fail. I want every client to leave. I want your distributor to drop you. I want your company to collapse so completely that everyone in this industry remembers what happens when you treat good people like they're disposable. Silence on his end, just breathing. But here's what I'll do. I'll license you the patents. Not cheap, not friendly. But I'll do it because watching you beg me for scraps is more satisfying than watching your company die immediately. I laid out the terms. Prepaid support blocks at premium hourly rates. $500 per hour. Non-negotiable. 100-hour blocks. $50,000 prepaid. Non-refundable. Emergency calls count as double hours. Any attempt to reverse engineer my patents triggers immediate termination plus liquidated damages of $500,000. Response time is best effort, but my paying clients get priority. Oh, and all support requests go through my ticketing portal. No more calling me directly. You submit tickets like everyone else. That's over $1 million a year. Yeah, that's what I'm worth. Should have figured that out before you fired me. He took the deal. Signed it at 11:47 that night, 13 minutes before the deadline. But I wasn't done. I kept sending documentation to procurement contacts. Kept updating them on every mistake, every failure, every bad decision. Professional, factual, relentless. We're now fielding calls from Doug's former clients at a rate of about 3 per week. When your vendor gets blacklisted from procurement systems, publicly humiliated by your own engineering team, and can't deliver basic support without paying premium consulting rates, customers start looking for alternatives. And when those customers call, they get me and my team. The current situation. Doug's company is still operating. Barely. They ran through the first prepaid block in 3 weeks. I didn't celebrate. I just sent the invoice for the next block, and the one after that, and the one after that. I don't help him. I bill him. Every ticket he submits gets categorized, time-stamped, and added to the growing invoice total. Legacy damage mitigation, management cause decisions, emergency consultation, previously free weekend work. Every line item is a reminder of what he threw away. Last Tuesday, Doug's CFO called me directly. Tried to negotiate around Doug. Offered me a flat monthly retainer at a lower rate. I declined. Told him the terms were the terms, and if Doug wanted to renegotiate, he could submit a ticket through the portal. The CFO hung up. About 6 weeks ago, Doug started trying to hire engineers from overseas to reverse engineer my patents. 3 days ago, his attempt finally fell apart. My lawyer sent him a cease and desist within 4 hours of finding out. The overseas firm backed out immediately once they realized they'd be stepping into active IP litigation. Doug wasted 6 weeks and probably $50,000 in legal fees chasing that dead end. I made sure the trade publications knew about it too. Former employee patent dispute escalates at Doug's company. Just facts. No commentary. Let the industry draw their own conclusions. Meanwhile, my consulting firm just hit a milestone. We signed our 15th client last week. That's 15 hospital networks that either dropped Doug or chose us over him. We're building something that works. 2 weeks ago, Doug's lead investor called me. Not to threaten, not to negotiate. He wanted to know if I'd be interested in acquiring what's left of Doug's company once things finish playing out. I told him no. I don't want Doug's problems. I want his clients, and I'm getting them one by one without having to buy anything. But I appreciate him confirming that Doug's company is circling the drain. I met someone new, different from Kayla in every way that matters. Met her through Nathan, actually, his wife's friend. She's a teacher, doesn't know anything about medical devices, doesn't care about my consulting rates or my revenge or any of it. When I tell her about my day, she asks if I'm happy. Not how much I build, not whether I'm winning, just if I'm happy. And honestly, yeah, I am. That's the difference. That's what matters. This morning, I got an email from him. Can we negotiate a better rate structure? The current terms aren't sustainable for our business model. I replied with 6 words. Should have thought of that earlier. An hour later, Doug replied, please, I'm begging you. I can't keep paying these rates. The company can't survive like this. I wrote back, you're right, it can't. That's the point. You called me cheap labor. You told me I was nobody. You gave my job to your wife and thought you could replace me with someone younger and cheaper. Now you're learning what I was actually worth. Every invoice is a lesson. Every ticket you submit is a reminder. You're not negotiating with me, Doug. You're paying tuition for a decade-long education in what happens when you throw away the person who built everything you have. He didn't respond. Tomorrow I have a call with the hospital network that was Doug's biggest client. They want to discuss a long-term exclusive support agreement. They've already run the numbers. They know Doug can't support them anymore. They know I can. Doug's going to lose his anchor account by the end of the month. He doesn't know it yet, but he will. Because I'm going to make sure he knows exactly when it happens. A professional courtesy email. Just wanted to inform you that we've entered into a support agreement with. Wanted you to hear it from me first. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks. When I walked into the certification meeting, the CEO pointed to a folding chair. Sit over there, Grandpa. Everyone laughed. Cameras were rolling. I just smiled. Within 24 hours, the $58 million milestone was frozen. Hey Reddit, I'm Kai, 47 male. I held off posting this until everything was wrapped up, and I knew I wasn't stepping on anything sensitive. I'm keeping a few specifics vague for obvious reasons. The drive from Baltimore to Pentagon City was supposed to take an hour. That morning, some genius in a BMW decided to play bumper cars on I-95, so I spent 40 minutes watching a tow truck fish his Bavarian engineering out of a guardrail while my phone buzzed. I'd been doing this drive for 20 years, 23 years in defense aviation since I left the Air Force. My girlfriend Charlie had texted twice. First one said she'd pick up groceries on her way home. Second one asked if I wanted chicken or salmon for dinner. Then came the text from my mother. Your brother says the big meeting is today. We're all so proud of Caleb. Make sure you're supportive, Kai. This is important. That was Susan in a nutshell. 47 years of raising 2 sons, and she still couldn't send me a message that wasn't really about Caleb. My father, Joseph, was worse. He had given up the pretense somewhere around my 12th birthday when I said I wanted to be an engineer instead of a lawyer like him. Here's the family dynamic in case you're wondering. Caleb is 3 years younger and approximately 300% more charming. VP of Business Development at Stanton Aerospace. Loud, confident, and absolutely convinced that the universe revolves around his $500 haircuts and his ability to shake hands with important people. He drives a car that costs more than my first house, wears expensive watches, and for the past 8 months, he'd been telling everyone at family gatherings that the DoD contract was his masterpiece, his ticket to the C-suite, his moment. Our parents had bought the hype completely. 6 months ago, they'd refinanced their house and taken out a home equity line of credit. $80,000 borrowed against 3 decades of mortgage payments, all because Caleb convinced them his stock options were about to pay out big once the first milestone payment came through. He'd been promising them a $200,000 return on their investment, maybe enough to finally buy that vacation condo in Florida they'd been talking about for years. My mother had called me when they were signing the papers, asked if I thought it was a good idea. I'd told her I didn't know enough about Stanton's financials to comment. She'd said that was just like me to be unsupportive, that Caleb believed in himself and she wished I could do the same. What nobody in my family seemed to realize was that the $58 million milestone payment couldn't be released without my signature. See, I'm a delegated airworthiness signatory for DoD programs. It's a fancy title that basically means I'm the last line of defense before the military writes checks for flight-critical software. I review systems that keep pilots alive, verify compliance with standards that have been written in blood over decades of aviation accidents, sign off on airworthiness determinations that mean the difference between a fighter jet performing correctly and a funeral with full military honors. Without my approval on this particular program, no milestone gate closes, no progress payment gets released, no stock options vest, no vacation condos get purchased. Caleb knew I worked in defense certification. He just never bothered to ask what that actually meant. Why would he? I was just his boring older brother who drove a 10-year-old truck. I finally got to the Pentagon City garage at 9:40, 20 minutes before the meeting, parked my truck between a Mercedes and a Tesla, grabbed my briefcase, and headed for the elevator. The briefcase was worn leather, 15 years old, brass clasps slightly tarnished from use. Looked like something a high school principal would carry to a PTA meeting. That was intentional. People underestimate you when you don't look expensive. I'd built an entire career on that underestimation. Inside were these certification documents, backup copies of everything on a flash drive, and a box of Cuban cigars I'd planned to share after the sign-off. Figured we'd celebrate the milestone closing like professionals. The conference room was on the 14th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Potomac. When I walked in, I immediately spotted Caleb sitting 3 seats down from the CEO, grinning like he'd already won something. He was wearing a suit that probably cost $2,000. He didn't acknowledge me, didn't even glance in my direction, just kept schmoozing with the executives like I wasn't there. Anton Holt, the CEO, looked up from his tablet and gave me the full once-over, shoes to hairline. His eyes lingered on my briefcase, like it personally offended him. Then they moved to my jacket, my tie, my haircut, all of it falling short of whatever standard he'd set in his head. Then he pointed to the corner. Folding chair, metal frame, thin vinyl pad. The kind of chair you sit on at a church basement budget meeting while you contemplate your life choices. It was positioned about 8 feet from the main table, angled toward the wall like an afterthought. Like someone had set it up for a coat rack and then decided a person could sit there instead. Consultant, Holt said without looking at me again. Sit over there. This discussion is above your clearance level. A few chuckles around the table. Caleb laughed the loudest, which was impressive since he still hadn't actually looked at me. I set my briefcase down next to the folding chair. Didn't sit. The red light on the security camera in the corner caught my eye. Standard protocol for controlled defense programs. Everything recorded. That little red light was about to become the most expensive LED in Stanton Aerospace's history, but nobody in that room knew it yet. Except me. Holt looked up again, annoyed. I said, sit down. The adults are talking. More laughter. A guy named Garrett, early 30s, started reaching for his phone. Murray gave him a look. Garrett's hand went back to the table. I stayed standing, folded my arms across my chest, kept my face completely neutral. There's something you should know before we start. Holt looked at me. What's that? If you want me in that corner chair, I said, keeping my voice level, then by Thursday morning, $58 million in milestone payments won't be part of this program anymore. Dead silence. Caleb's grin flickered, then died completely. Then Garrett laughed out loud. Sure thing, Grandpa. Maybe threaten us with your AARP card next. More nervous laughter from a few others. Holt shook his head like I was a confused old man who'd wandered in looking for the restroom. Enough, he said. Sit down and let the professionals handle this. Now here's the thing about defense aviation that most people don't understand. It's not like regular business where you can cut corners and apologize later. Maybe send out a software patch and hope nobody noticed. The DoD doesn't hand out $58 million checks because you asked nicely and showed up with a PowerPoint presentation. They release milestone payments against certification gates. And those gates don't open without a delegated airworthiness signatory, confirming that the software won't turn a multi-million-dollar aircraft into a very expensive lawn dart. That signatory, for Stanton Aerospace's flight control system contract, was me. 8 months earlier, Stanton had won a DoD contract for next-generation flight control software, military application, redundant processing channels that could handle multiple simultaneous failures, real-time fault detection with automatic failover, the kind of technology that keeps fighter pilots alive when everything goes sideways at Mach 2 and 30,000 feet. Total contract value was around $170 million across 3 phases. The first milestone payment, $58 million, was contingent on passing the initial airworthiness certification review, which required my signature. I'd been assigned to the program the day the contract was finalized. The DoD likes continuity on critical programs. One airworthiness signatory from start to finish, tracking every decision, every document, every line of code that might matter when lives are on the line. Caleb had been so focused on the business development side, the handshakes and the golf outings and the expensive dinners, that he'd never bothered to check who was assigned to the technical certification. Holt pulled up his presentation on the wall screen. Timelines, technical specifications, confident projections about delivery dates that I already knew they couldn't hit. He talked like he was briefing four-star generals, except he'd clearly never actually briefed a general in his life. Murray, the finance director, spoke up. He was early 60s, gray hair, calm demeanor. One of the few people in the room who looked like he'd actually been around the block a few times. These deployment schedules are aggressive, he said carefully. They're necessary, not aggressive, Holt shot back. That's why we're here. Final certification sign-off. Get the government sign-off. Release the milestone payment. Start phase 2. I shifted my briefcase from one hand to the other. The motion caught a few glances. You can leave that outside, Holt said without looking at me. We don't need consultants weighing in on technical matters. I'll keep it here. The case contains the certification authorization documents. Long pause. Several people looked up from their tablets. Caleb finally turned to look at me. First time since I'd walked in. He looked confused. We're here to finalize the certification, Holt said, his voice harder now. Certifications require proper authorization. Holt folded his hands on the table like a professor about to explain something to a slow student. And who exactly do you represent? The Department of Defense. Caleb's face went blank. Kai, what do you mean? His voice cracked when he said my name. I met his eyes and held them. That's my job. You're the airworthiness signatory? Holt asked. I'm the delegated airworthiness signatory assigned to this program. Without my signature on the airworthiness determination, no milestone gate closes. No payment gets released. That's not what we were told. Nobody asked the right person. His expression changed. The kind of look you get when you realize you've made a serious mistake. Caleb's voice went up an octave. This is a conflict of interest. He's my brother. He can't be objective. I turned to look at him directly. I disclosed our relationship to the DoD contracting office the day I was assigned. 8 months ago. They reviewed the program structure, confirmed you have zero involvement in the technical certification package, documented the firewall between business development and airworthiness review, and cleared me to proceed. The disclosure memo is in my briefcase. 3 copies, signed, dated, and filed. Want to see it? He didn't have an answer for that. Murray spoke up. He's listed as primary airworthiness signatory on all our DoD filings. Has been from the beginning. Holt's voice got colder. This meeting was supposed to be about final coordination. Final coordination requires someone who can approve the certification, or deny it. A woman named Celeste, one of the board members, flipped through her contract copy with increasing intensity. She stopped on a page near the back. There's something here about a conduct provision. Section 15. Murray read from the document, enunciating each word clearly. It ties certification approval to professional conduct during all compliance proceedings. Any documented behavior that materially damages working relationships allows for immediate certification suspension. Garrett stopped smirking. The color drained from his face. Without prior notice? Without prior notice, I confirmed. It's standard language for controlled defense programs. Your lawyers drafted it 8 months ago. Our lawyers approved that language, Holt said, but his voice had lost its edge. They drafted it. At my specific request. Because I've seen what happens when companies don't take certification oversight seriously. Murray glanced at the security camera. The red light was steady. This meeting is being recorded. Standard protocol, Holt said quickly. Yes, for documentation. Celeste spoke up again. Has this conduct clause ever been triggered? Once. Contractor lost their airworthiness authorization. Out of business in 6 months. 200 people looking for jobs. 3 years of development down the drain. I paused for effect. Over a similar misunderstanding about professional courtesy. Holt stood up so fast his chair hit the wall behind him with a bang that made half the room flinch. We're taking 15. The hallway outside was chaos. The kind where everyone's talking in whispers and nobody wants to be the first to say what they're all thinking. Board members clustered in small groups. I could see them replaying the meeting in their heads, trying to figure out where everything had gone wrong. Caleb caught up to me near the water fountain. His face was red. His hands were shaking. I'd never seen him like this. The guy who could charm his way through any room, any meeting, any situation. Now he looked like someone had kicked his legs out from under him. What are you doing? This is my contract, my career. Your CEO just pointed me to a folding chair and called me grandpa. On camera. In front of 12 witnesses. So what? That's just how Anton is. You're going to tank a $58 million payment because your feelings got hurt? I'm going to uphold airworthiness standards. That's my job. Has been for 23 years. Your job is to rubber stamp paperwork. That's all you've ever been, Kai. A bureaucrat with a briefcase. Nobody in this industry takes you seriously. That's interesting. Because right now, I'm the only person in this building whose signature matters. I walked away from him and found a quiet corner near the stairwell. Pulled out my secure phone and called Lenny. Lenny had been my partner for 11 years. Former Air Force, like me. We'd served together at Edwards, testing systems that were supposed to work and sometimes didn't. He was 5'6", built like a fireplug. He was also the best documentation specialist I'd ever met. The kind of guy who could find a discrepancy in a 1,000-page technical manual while eating a sandwich. Go ahead, he answered. Initiate the certification hold. Program 749er-alpha. Brief pause. I could hear him typing. Full hold, full hold. 48 hours. Professional conduct violation. Security footage available. Multiple witnesses. Copy that. Lenny's voice had a hint of amusement. How bad was it? Folding chair. Called me grandpa. Told me the discussion was above my clearance level. Lenny whistled. The old folding chair gambit. Classic power move. Saw it backfire beautifully about 5 years ago on another program. You know what this reminds me of? Don't say it. That scene in Goodfellas where Tommy thinks he's getting made, and instead he gets, yeah, I know the scene. Just file the paperwork. DOD notification goes out 0800 tomorrow. I'll have the documentation package ready by noon. Video clips, witness list, timeline, the whole thing. And Kai? Yeah? Tell me you got it on camera. Security system was recording the whole time. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. This is going to be one for the training manual. He paused. You okay? I'm fine. Just another day in defense aviation. Sure. Another day where you watch your brother's company implode because his boss couldn't resist being a jerk. Totally normal Tuesday. I hung up and walked back toward the conference room. Holt was waiting near the door. He looked smaller somehow. Look, he said. Maybe we got off on the wrong foot. Maybe. You could have clarified your role from the start. I tried. You told me to sit in the corner. He didn't have a response for that. I walked past him. Back inside, the room was trying to reset. Papers shuffled. Coffee poured. People avoided making eye contact with me. Holt clicked to his next slide, but the confidence in his voice was gone. As we were discussing, the deployment timeline requires immediate certification sign-off. I cleared my throat. All eyes turned to me. There's been a development. Holt's face went pale. What development? The DOD will receive formal notification tomorrow morning that this certification is under administrative review. What kind of review? Conduct assessment. Standard procedure when professional standards are questioned during certification proceeding. Caleb stood up fast. This is personal. You're doing this because you've always been jealous of me. I'm doing this because your CEO demonstrated that this company doesn't take certification oversight seriously. That's a safety issue. When the guy responsible for signing off on flight-critical software gets pointed to a folding chair and mocked in front of the entire leadership team, that tells me everything I need to know about how this company approaches quality control. Holt slammed his hand on the table. This is blackmail. This is consequences. Celeste spoke up, her voice tight. What would it take to stop the review? I looked around the table slowly, made eye contact with each person. Nothing. It's already in motion. I picked up my briefcase. Review notification goes out 0800 tomorrow. Initial documentation package to DOD procurement. By Thursday noon. Final determination follows leadership review. I walked out. I don't remember you sacrificing anything for me. Don't be dramatic. I paid for my own college, Mom. I paid for my own flight training. I bought my own house. Every major milestone in my adult life, I handled myself because you two were too busy investing in Caleb's future to notice I existed. That's not fair. It's the truth. My father got on the line. His voice was cold. Fix this, Kai. Whatever your brother did to upset you, get over it. Caleb's CEO humiliated me on camera. Caleb laughed. So what? You think respect is free? You earn it by helping people who matter. Right now, Caleb matters. And I don't. You've never mattered. You've always been the difficult one. The stubborn one. The one who had to do everything the hard way instead of accepting help. The help you never offered. Fix this, Kai. Or you're not part of this family anymore. I hung up. Sat in my truck in the parking lot for a minute, processing. Then I drove home. Charlie was supposed to get there around 7. She texted that she was running late. Traffic. I made myself a sandwich and waited. She walked in around 7:30. Set down grocery bags, looked at me, and something was different. The sweet girlfriend act was slipping. I just talked to your mother. I know. She sat down across from me at the kitchen table. Kai, I need you to understand what you're doing here. This affects us. Our future. What future? The house we've been looking at. The life we talked about building. Caleb told me if the certification goes through, his stock options would be worth close to $300,000. Your parents would be fine. We could finally move forward with everything we've been waiting for. When did you talk to Caleb about his stock option? She hesitated, just long enough for me to notice. We've been talking. He's your brother. I wanted to understand what was happening with the family. How long? A few weeks? Maybe a month? A month. You've been texting my brother for a month behind my back. I was trying to help everyone get on the same page. You never tell me anything about your work, because my work is classified. If I'd known you had this kind of power, I could have helped you see how important it was to just sign off and support your family. You could have helped me compromise my professional integrity. I could have helped you be a team player for once. I looked at her for a long moment. 2 years together. Dinners. Vacations. Conversations about the future. And the whole time, she'd been building relationships with my family that I didn't know about, positioning herself for whatever outcome benefited her most. Your mother thinks you're having a breakdown, she said. That you're jealous of Caleb because he's more successful than you. Did she tell you to say that? We all think it. I just didn't want to believe it until... Charlie, get out. Excuse me? I said get out. Pack whatever you need tonight. I'll box up the rest of your stuff and leave it on the porch. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. You've been working my family behind my back for a month, gathering intel, positioning yourself for whatever outcome benefits you most. She stood up. Her face had gone cold. The mask was completely off now. Fine. But when this blows up in your face and you realize you've destroyed everything, don't come crawling back to me. I won't. She grabbed her purse and left, slammed the door hard enough to rattle the pictures on the wall. I sat in the quiet for a while, thought about calling someone, decided against it, made myself dinner. The next morning, Lenny was waiting at the office with a stack of documents and 2 cups of gas station coffee. He was grinning. How bad is it for them? I asked. Stanton's going to be flagged in the system within 24 hours. Any active certifications held pending review. 4 programs total. About $200 million in pending payments across the board. He slid a folder across the desk. But that's not the interesting part. What's the interesting part? I did some digging last night. Couldn't sleep. You know how I get when something doesn't add up. I knew. Lenny had once spent 3 days tracking down a discrepancy in a certification package that turned out to be a typo. But the typo had masked a real problem. And that problem would have killed people. He trusted his instincts. Your brother's been busy, he continued. Turns out Caleb knew you were assigned as the airworthiness signatory. He found out 3 months ago. I stared at him. What? Internal email from Stanton's contracts office? They flagged the potential conflict of interest just like they're supposed to, and sent it up the chain for review. Your brother was copied on the distribution. He replied acknowledging receipt, timestamp, digital signature, the whole thing. He knew, Kai. He knew for 3 months and he didn't say a word. Not to you, not to Holt, not to anyone. Why would he keep that quiet? Lenny shrugged. Maybe he figured he could manage you. Big brother who always bails him out when things get tough. Maybe he thought you'd just sign off because family loyalty trumps professional integrity. Or maybe he was setting me up to take the blame if anything went wrong. That too. Oh, I had no idea my brother was the airworthiness signatory. What a coincidence. He must have approved it because we're family, not because the technical work was sound. Either way, he wins and you're the bad guy. I leaned back in my chair. He knew. This whole time he knew. And he let Holt humiliate me anyway. Gets better. Lenny pulled out another document. Your girlfriend, Charlie? Maiden name is Hartley. She went to Penn State same years as your brother. Same business school. Same professional fraternity. They knew each other before? Lenny slid a printout across the desk. Photo from 2018. Business fraternity formal. Charlie and Caleb standing close together. Her hand on his arm. Both smiling at the camera. My stomach dropped. Now, I'm not saying anything definitive, Lenny said carefully. Could be coincidence. People meet through mutual connections all the time. But your brother introduces you to a woman he went to college with, who turns out to be very interested in your career details, who's been texting him behind your back for at least a month. That's a pattern worth noticing. I sat with that for a minute. 2 years with Charlie. And now this photo, this connection I never knew about. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe Caleb really did just think we'd hit it off. Maybe she reconnected with him recently because of family stuff. Or maybe I'd been played. Not necessarily some elaborate scheme from day one, but at minimum, they'd been coordinating behind my back. At minimum, she'd chosen his side over mine. At minimum, there was a relationship there that she'd hidden for 2 years. Either way, it didn't matter anymore. She was gone. The truth could stay murky. Lenny watched me process it. You okay? I'll be fine. What else you got? My secure phone buzzed. Text from Murray at Stanton. Can we talk? Off the record. I showed Lenny. Interesting, he said. The finance guy wants to chat. Think he's trying to save his own skin? Only one way to find out. I called Murray back. He answered on the first ring. Mr. Parker, Thank you for calling. I wanted you to know something. I'm listening. I've been documenting issues at Stanton for 2 years. Quality control shortcuts, schedule pressure overriding safety protocols, Holt dismissing concerns from the engineering team, red flags that got buried because raising them meant getting labeled as not a team player. I have records, emails, meeting notes, internal memos that got deleted from the company servers, but not from my personal backups. Why are you telling me this? Because I've been waiting for someone to actually do something about it. I raised concerns through proper channels 3 times, got shut down every time. Holt called me a pessimist, said I didn't understand the business realities, and because I have a daughter who's a pilot in the Navy. She flies F-18S off carriers. I don't want her or anyone like her flying anything that got certified by a company that treats oversight personnel like furniture. That's a good reason. I spent 20 years at Boeing before this. I know what good safety culture looks like. Stanton isn't it. Never was. I should have left a year ago, but I kept hoping things would change. Now I'm just hoping the damage can be contained. Send me what you have. I will. Everything I've got. And Mr. Parker, thank you. For not backing down. For not just signing off because it was easier. There aren't enough people like you in this industry. He hung up. Lenny was grinning again. Looks like we've got an inside man. Looks like it. This just got a lot more interesting. Wednesday evening, my phone rang. Colonel Celeste Hayes from Pentagon Procurement Review. Mr. Parker, I'm calling about the Stanton Aerospace Review. Finished the preliminary assessment this afternoon. What did you find? Documentation is comprehensive. Security footage is crystal clear. We pulled the recording from 3 different angles. The moment where he points at the folding chair is going to be used in training materials for years. Multiple witnesses, including 4 board members who've already submitted statements distancing themselves from Holt's behavior. And we received some additional materials from an internal source that paint a very concerning picture of the company's overall approach to safety compliance. Murray's documents had made it through. Good. Recommendation? Immediate suspension from all active certifications. Enhanced oversight requirements for any future programs. Minimum 18 months before reinstatement can even be considered. Joseph Lee, given what we found in those internal documents, I'd recommend they never get reinstated, but that's above my pay grade. When does it go final? Report to Pentagon leadership tomorrow morning at 0700. Official notification to Stanton by end of business Thursday. They'll have until Friday to respond, but there's nothing they can say that's going to change the outcome. Thank you, Colonel. One more thing, Mr. Parker. The materials from the internal source documented a pattern of behavior going back 2 years. Shortcuts on testing protocols. Schedule pressure overriding safety concerns. Engineers being told to sign off on incomplete verification. This was a company culture problem from top to bottom. I figured as much. The professional standards initiative we've been developing? Your case is going to be the pilot program. The way you handled this? That's exactly what we want to see replicated across the industry. We'd like you involved in building it out. I'd be interested in discussing that. Good. We'll talk after the dust settles. Which should be about the time Stanton's valuation turns into a yard sale. She hung up. Thursday morning, Holt called. His voice sounded like someone had let all the air out of him. It's over, isn't it? You'll have official notification this afternoon. 18-month suspension. Our lawyers say that's a death sentence for a company our size. We can't survive 18 months without DoD work. Probably not. You destroyed us. No, you did. Over a folding chair. Over respect. The board fired me an hour ago. I heard. For what it's worth, I get it now. What I did wrong. Do you? Respect isn't something you give people after they prove they deserve it. It's baseline. It's how you treat everyone who walks through the door. That's a start. Too late, but it's a start. He hung up. Thursday evening, Caleb showed up at my apartment. Lenny had bet me $20 he'd come before the weekend. I owed him dinner now. He looked bad. You happy now? Not particularly. You destroyed everything. My career. Mom and Dad's retirement. Ashley's talking about lawyers. Ashley is his wife, by the way. That's rough. That's rough? That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say, Caleb? You knew I was assigned to your certification. You knew for 3 months. You could have pulled me aside. Could have told Holt to show some basic professionalism. Instead, you let him mock me on camera and you laughed. I didn't think, no, you didn't. You never do. You just assume everything will work out because it always has. This was supposed to be my moment. And you could have shared it. We could have been on the same team. Brothers working together on a major defense contract. But you couldn't do that, could you? You needed me to be invisible while you took all the credit. He was quiet for a moment. The Charlie thing. We stayed in touch after I introduced you two. She'd ask about family stuff. Update me on how you were doing. You were keeping tabs on me through my girlfriend. It wasn't like that. Not at first. But when the certification assignment came up, she started asking more questions about your work. about how you'd handle pressure. I should have told you, but you didn't. No. I figured if things got complicated, she could help smooth things over. Talk you into being reasonable. Yeah, you mean do what you wanted. I'm sorry. Sorry that it didn't work? He didn't answer. Go home, Caleb. Fix your marriage if you can. Find a new job. But don't come back here expecting me to feel bad for you. You made your choices. Now you get to live with them. He left without another word. I closed the door and made dinner. 6 months later, Stanton Aerospace filed for bankruptcy. 218 people out of work. The flight control system that was supposed to be the future of military aviation would never see production. 3 years of development, $170 million in contract value, all gone. Because one CEO couldn't resist the urge to mock an old guy with a worn-out briefcase. The bankruptcy proceedings were messy, finger-pointing everywhere. Board members blaming Holt blaming the board. Lawyers making more money than anyone else in the room. Same story you see every time a company this size goes under. Murray had landed on his feet. His documentation had helped the DoD investigators understand exactly how bad things were at Stanton. The problems went deeper than anyone had realized. Shortcuts on testing protocols, engineers being pressured to sign off on incomplete work, safety concerns getting buried under schedule pressure. The folding chair thing was just the tip of it. Murray was consulting now, helping other companies build the kind of compliance culture that Stanton never had. We grabbed lunch every few weeks. Good guy. His daughter was stationed in San Diego, flying F-18S off carriers. Every time we talked, he mentioned how grateful he was that she wasn't flying anything Stanton had built. Caleb had been let go 3 months after the suspension hit. Officially, it was a restructuring. Unofficially, the new leadership wanted nothing to do with anyone connected to the Holt era. Couldn't blame them. Last I heard through the family grapevine, he was working at a car dealership in Virginia. Not selling cars, doing paperwork in the back office, processing title transfers and loan application, filing documents for minimum wage plus whatever commission the actual salespeople didn't want. Apparently, Ashley had gone through with the divorce. She'd kept the house, the car, and most of their savings. Caleb was living in an apartment now, a one-bedroom in a complex that advertised move-in specials to attract tenants. A long way from the McMansion he'd been planning to buy with his stock option windfall. My parents lost their house. The HELOC payments became unmanageable once Caleb's income disappeared and his stock options turned worthless. They'd had to sell at a loss and move into a rental apartment in a part of town they'd always looked down on. My mother had sent me 2 emails blaming me for everything. Long, rambling emails about how I'd always been selfish, how I'd never supported the family, how I'd destroyed their retirement out of spite. I'd read them, considered responding, decided there was nothing to say that would change anything. They'd made their choice decades ago. Now they were living with the consequences. My father hadn't contacted me at all. 6 months of radio silence, probably for the best. Anything he said would just be a variation on the same theme. I'd failed to be a team player, failed to put family first, failed to do what I was told. Charlie had moved on within a month. New boyfriend, some finance guy with a corner office, and a LinkedIn profile full of buzzwords. Exactly what she'd been shopping for all along. I hoped they'd be very happy together, in the way you hope your ex's new car breaks down on the highway. Lenny knocked on my office door and walked in with his usual gas station coffee. He'd been promoted to senior documentation lead for the new Professional Standards Initiative. Bigger office, same terrible coffee. Seen the news? He dropped a printout on my desk. Pentagon finalizes Professional Standards Initiative. New oversight requirements for defense contractors. I skimmed the article. Conduct compliance programs. Certification authority protections. Mandatory respect training for contractor executives. They specifically named you as director, Lenny said. $12 million over 3 years. Plus, the satisfaction of knowing every defense contractor's CEO in the country is going to think twice before pointing at a folding chair. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. This is Kai. Mr. Parker. This is Rebecca Holt. I recognized the name. Anton Holt's daughter. I'd read about her in the business coverage of Stanton's collapse. Stanford MBA. Had worked at the company for 2 years before everything fell apart. What can I do for you? I wanted to thank you for holding my father accountable. Thank me? He treated everyone that way. Employees, vendors, family, even me. The bankruptcy forced him to actually look at himself for the first time in 30 years. He's getting help now, actually listening when people talk. That's good. I'm starting my own company, defense consulting, helping contractors build better workplace cultures before they end up like my father's company. Prevention instead of punishment. Sounds like important work. I want you as an advisor because you held a line that needed to be held, because this industry needs more people willing to enforce standards instead of looking the other way. Send me the business plan. I'll take a look. But Rebecca, Yes? If you ever point anyone at a folding chair, I'll shut you down just as fast. She laughed. I'd expect nothing less. After she hung up, Lenny was still standing there, grinning like an idiot. What? You're going soft in your old age. I'm being practical. Better to help build good companies than spend all my time tearing down bad ones. So you're taking the Pentagon job? I picked up my phone, started typing a response to Colonel Hayes. What are you telling her? That I'm interested. With conditions, full authority on conduct violation, real-time documentation requirements, mandatory training for all contractor executives who interact with certification personnel. Think they'll agree? If they want it to work, they don't have a choice. Within 30 seconds, my phone buzzed. All conditions approved. Start date negotiable. Looking forward to working with you? That evening, I found the Cuban cigars I'd packed in my briefcase 8 months earlier, still in the box. Never opened. I'd meant to share them after the certification sign-off. I put the cigars back in my briefcase. The next morning, I drove back to Pentagon City. Same building, different conference room, different energy entirely. When I walked in, 12 defense contractor executives stood up from their chairs and waited for me to sit before taking their own seats. Lenny was there too, sitting in the corner with his coffee, tablet ready to document everything. He caught my eye and gave me a nod. I set my briefcase on the table and looked around the room. Some of them looked nervous, some curious. All of them knew why they were here. I opened my briefcase and pulled out the first agenda item. Lenny, still in the corner, muttered just loud enough for me to hear, "This is like the end of the Shawshank Redemption. Except instead of a beach in Mexico, you got a government pension and a really nice view of the Potomac." I almost smiled. Some lessons are worth the wait. Respect isn't something you give people after they prove they deserve it. It's baseline. When you're certifying software that keeps pilots alive, everyone at the table matters. And when you forget that, when you decide some people are worth less than others based on how expensive their watch is, it doesn't matter how smart you are. You'll end up explaining to an empty boardroom why your company doesn't exist anymore. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.